Okay, seems we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to each and every one of you. And of course, welcome to the 6th episode of The Gaming Grifter, or just Gaming Grifter, whichever one works for you. This is the show, of course, where we do a bit of a recap on the week's news, discuss anything that might be new, that may have come out in the last day or two. I didn't make any videos yesterday because, quite frankly, it's just basically harping on about the same stuff. Assassin's Creed Shadows is still dying, or is at least dead. And I've covered pretty much everything in that sort of space already. But there does appear to be now something a little bit more significant when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows that we have to be talking about. But of course, the main reason for this show is so that I can connect with you guys, so we can talk, so I can get your feedback, and, you know, sort of figure out where you guys are in the entire conversation. And hopefully we get some interesting discussions and interesting topics to play around with. Grofile, Gregory, Avedon, Nicholas, Apoc, how are you guys? I'm so happy to have all of you here with me. Now, I've been thinking about how to start today's show. Should we start with the gaming industry and the stuff that's happening in the gaming industry, or should we start on a bit more of a fun note? And I decided I want to start on a fun note. I want to talk about Solastra 2. Now, I played Solastra 2, the demo, for a few hours, actually. The demo is only about 3 hours long. It's not that long. 3 hours if you're doing everything. I probably spent about 5, almost 6 hours in the demo. I started a couple of times, or restarted a couple of times, just for funsies. It was genuinely fun. It's genuinely a really good game. At least, how do I put this? It's very Baldur's Gate. Very Baldur's Gate. I'm trying to see if I can show you guys some footage. Not sure if I have any footage of it right now. I can't remember where I saved the footage. That's the biggest issue here. Go-Kart, thank you so much. 30 months part of the DJ Nation. Appreciate you. Thank you. Really appreciate that. We're still holding a funeral for AC Shadows? Yeah, we're going to be holding a funeral for it. But, okay. So, let's quickly talk about Solastra 2. I don't know where my footage has gone. I'll find it maybe and it'll pop up. But I want to talk about this game because obviously I'm a huge RPG nerd. I love CRPGs. I sort of grew up with them, right? Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, Neverwinter Nights. All of these games are a part of my childhood, even though I was never really that much of a fan of Neverwinter Nights. I replayed Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 so many times. It's actually insane. Now, some good news to start off with. I've seen screenshots of Solastra 2. I've seen screenshots of their character creator screen, and you'll be happy to know I have seen no pronouns anywhere in the game whatsoever. There are no pronouns in the character selection screen, at least not what I've been able to see. I'm not sure if it uses body type A or B. I've been looking through the screenshots and it doesn't pop up. So if they do use body type, I haven't seen it. The game itself, the demo at least, let's just set the stage there. You start with 4 pre-made characters in your party. The game can be played either clicking the mouse, so sort of Baldur's Gate 3 style, or you can play with WASD. I originally started with the clicking, and then I switched to WASD just to try it out, and I have to say, so much more fun. Just running around using the WASD keys, because the game uses both a pretty large map, but also verticality is a huge thing. You're constantly climbing up on things, jumping down things, jumping over things, and the jumping is really well integrated. Unlike in Baldur's Gate 3, if you wanted to jump, you have to activate your jump spell and then jump. Here you just press spacebar. Pressing spacebar gets you over something, up on something, down something. Really fun in that regard. The world isn't as sort of, shall I say, alive necessarily as Baldur's Gate 3, so you can't talk to pretty much literally everyone. There are some NPCs that you can talk to, some NPCs that you cannot. Although I'm not sure how hard to judge that because this was a demo only. And one of the cool things, if you haven't tried the demo yet, I'm not sure if it's available still, but this is a unique demo insofar as once this mission is done, once the demo goes down, you'll never see this mission again. This storyline, the entire mission, it's just one demo. It's not part of the greater game. It's not a piece of the greater game. It takes place in its own area, its own world. So, you know, you'll get something pretty unique out of that if this is something that you wanted to try out. So with Solastra 2, the dialogue is actually pretty cool insofar as you have 4 people in your party, and each person in your party obviously have their own class, but also their own personality, their own skills that they're really, really good at. And in dialogue, you always see all of your party members, and you can respond with any of your 4 party members. But every single one of your party members will have various skills that might allow you to be more or less successful in a specific scenario based on the party member that you're talking with. So if you want to threaten, for example, your warrior is going to be really good with that. The mage, not so much. He's a pussy. Why would he threaten anyone and who would be afraid of him? But the warrior has that ability because they have sort of, a presence of violence around them. In order to steal, you want to use your thief. One of the things I didn't like so much is the game does not really respond to what you're doing. So there's one scene where I'm running into the mayor's house, and the mayor's like, "I'll be checking my belongings before you leave," and I robbed her blind. I took everything. Anything that wasn't nailed down was in my bag. Nothing happened. Didn't check. I was stealing it basically in front of her, and nothing happened. So, you know, that was not as good. But as far as the storytelling goes, it was really good, really well told. Now, of course, I can't comment on the story because it's a unique demo story. But I can say the way they tell the story, really well done. I was pretty much hooked from like the first half an hour. I really wanted to know how all of this is going to end. The voice acting is really good, really on top of things. I wasn't a huge fan of the combat. But then also I was a fan of the combat. It's weird. The combat is fine. But it might just be part of the demo. You're very limited in terms of what you can actually do. Like casting spells outside of your cantrip. You can literally just cast one, and then the problem is you have so few spells that one battle and you have to go sleep because everything's on cooldown. Yes, it uses the exact same system as Baldur's Gate 3. Cooldowns require rest in order to unlock. That was annoying as shit. Not gonna lie. The fact that you have all of these cool abilities that you might want to use, but then you don't have a campfire where you can sleep because unlike in Baldur's Gate 3, you can't just hit long sleep. You have to find campfires in the world and then sleep at those campfires or the campsites in order to do long sleep. You can't just sleep anywhere. Short sleep you can do anywhere, but you know, they don't unlock everything or they don't refresh everything. The story was good. The combat was decent. Not really that challenging. Just a lot of sort of pre-thinking and thinking about how you want to do things and what you want to try. The world does, to some extent, respond to the stuff you do, but not really. Definitely not to the level of Baldur's Gate 3. I will say, as my final sort of recommendation for Solastra 2, if you enjoyed Baldur's Gate 3, you're going to enjoy Solastra 2. If you're looking for another Baldur's Gate 3, this ain't it. This is sort of budget Baldur's Gate 3. It has all of the same bells and whistles, but it's not as loud. It doesn't make the same noise, and the pitch is sometimes a little bit off. But for the price, at least what I've been able to see, it's probably going to be a fun game. And I would highly recommend. If you want to try out Solastra 2, go to Steam and go buy it. It's really fun. The great pandering must end. The era of deconstructing masculinity is just misandry in a wrapping of diversity. Johnny, you're not wrong. Solastra 3 will be Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe. Pringles, how you doing? Z Vengeance, how you doing? The Sun Family, how you doing? Well, that's quite a quest line. Good on you, though. About time you settle down and put away the hookers and blow. Yeah, Gogart does. Stuff happens, right? Solastra 2 demo is still up. Can't see them removing it. It's a sort of prologue of sorts. It's not even a prologue. It's genuinely, if you go on their website, they say they crafted this story specifically for the beta, for the demo. So it really is just, I couldn't finish the demo, which was kind of sad, because the final battle, or what I think is the final battle, kept bombing out, like, kept dying. So, yeah, that was sort of sad. But overall, I did have a massive amount of fun. Mike, how you doing, brother? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so let's get into the first real story. I sort of wanted to tell you guys about Solastra 2. Have any of you, by the way, played Solastra 2? Have any of you tried it? Pringles, no. I have not tried the Assassin's Creed Shadows leaked version, obviously, because I wouldn't be able to stream it, so there would be literally no point for me to even download it. I could probably sail the high seas and get it, but I'm not buying it, so I'm not downloading it. It is what it is. I haven't heard of it till now. It's really good, Go-Kart. It's a really fun game. I really enjoyed it. No idea what it is. Okay, so Assassin's Creed Shadows is in the news once again. Now, they've been in the news pretty much non-stop, and I hesitate to say, technically speaking, this is the kind of advertisement or free advertisement that money cannot buy. That's why it's free. Assassin's Creed has basically been on the lips of every single person for months now, but never for good reasons. Never for good reasons, which is why, you know, Ubisoft is really, really testing that age-old adage of there's no such thing as bad press, because they are truly pushing it now. So first, we have the mess that is the dual protagonist system with a black samurai that no one asked for. And before anyone starts going, oh, you know, but what's wrong with the black samurai? It's not what people wanted. And that's how you know that it is a politically charged choice. If it was what people wanted, people would have been happy with it. But last time I checked, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a game that takes place in Japan, not in Africa. So when people heard, hey, we're finally going to Japan, I'm pretty sure that every gamer out there was thinking, oh boy, I can't wait to play with a black samurai. Of course, that is not what happened. So it is obviously a political choice. You're going to play with Yasuke, and then people also learn that actually you're not going to play with Yasuke. You don't have to play with Yasuke. He really is the quintessential token character. That's it. He's there so that they can say, hey, look, we have a black person in Japan during the feudal era. But that's it. If you never want to touch Yasuke at all, because, by the way, Yasuke cannot actually play the game the way that it's meant to be played. You want to sneak around like an assassin would? Yeah, Yasuke cannot do that. You might want to assassinate some people. Oh yeah, he doesn't do that either. Maybe you want to climb some very tall buildings, and he doesn't do that either. What does he do? He's very good at breaking things in Japan. You want to run through some walls and shit? Yeah, he's your man. You want to run through those little paper bullshit things that Japan call walls? Yeah, he can do that too. Maybe you want to smash a couple of holy temples and landmarks in Japan. Yasuke is definitely your man. Or perhaps you want to go out on a comfortable little stroll and slaughter a bunch of Japanese people. Yasuke's your man. Just stay away from the European peddlers, the ones that sell you things. They don't allow you to kill those. If you kill Europeans, otherwise white people, you desync and you have to go again. But kill as many Japanese people as you want. Ubisoft really doesn't care. Of course, to top all of this, when Ubisoft finally decides, hey, perhaps it's time for us to, really advertise this game, step up the marketing, so to speak. They decide to use a Torii gate. Or not just any Torii gate, they decide to use a Torii gate that was blown to pieces by some nuclear bombs during the Second World War. This really felt great as far as advertising for feudal Japan is concerned. I'm not sure. My history is a bit shoddy, but I'm not. Does feudal Japan happen before, during, or after the Second World War? This is a great mystery to obviously everyone involved. most likely for Ubisoft specifically, because these guys just don't seem to understand what anything is. Of course, the most recent controversy, actually, scratch that, their latest controversy that isn't the latest, but it's the one prior to the latest, because there's a brand new one just today, but their previous latest, a few days ago, Ubisoft decides to share a special recipe for a special drink, the kind of drink that you can have alongside your first ever playthrough of Assassin's Creed Shadows. The age-old, traditional, not Japanese boba tea. It's not Japanese, it's Taiwanese. Japan had nothing to do with it, specifically not during feudal Japan. But the recipe is shared anyways, and people can make their own little boba teas just for funsies. You know, while we're shitting on the Japanese people, Ubisoft really didn't want to make any of the other Asian countries feel left out. If they're going to steal from Japan, they may as well steal from Taiwan too, you know. But to make matters even worse, and of course, as I said, this wasn't their latest controversy. No, their latest controversy happened about 15 hours ago, when Ubisoft, apparently not happy with only offending the Japanese or the Taiwanese, or basically anyone with any sense, Ubisoft says, scratch this. We have a $300 version of the game. You should buy that, by the way. I think they would really want you to. The problem, of course, with the $300 version of the game is it launches with a poster. A very nice looking poster. One tiny issue with the poster, and this really is tiny, but it's in Chinese, not so much Japanese. They use Chinese styles for it. They use Chinese calligraphy for it. And they kind of get a lot of the words wrong, which makes people go, did they even know what they were writing here? Did they know how they were writing it in the first place? Packer Gold, of course, unpacks it a little bit better. This is such a clear example of tokenization and racism on display from Ubisoft. This is a company, Nicholas, they're not cursed. This is what happens when you're desperate to appear inclusive. You're desperate to appear like the kind of person that is woke. You know, the kind of person that is great. You're a nice guy. I mean, this happens. You have a bunch of people over at... there's another story that I saw a little bit earlier. It's sort of this. This is sort of similar vibes, right? So you have Scrappy here, for example. Now, Lil Scrappy has a problem with some of the people in the Play Apex community. Scrappy, and I'm reading this to you because this is literally Ubisoft, if Ubisoft tweeted stuff. There is a significant issue within certain segments of the white community in Apex where individuals appropriate the identity of the Asian community for personal gain. I thought Asians were white adjacent. That's what the journalist told me, so I don't know what happens here. Asian people just can't catch a break. These individuals often disguise themselves with anime avatars and create VTuber models that mimic Asian physical features. They exploit and objectify Asian bodies, reducing their culture and identity to mere stereotypes for fetishistic purposes. This is a clear example of racism. It's the act of hijacking entire culture and identity, using it for personal and financial gain, while offering no acknowledgement or respect for the history, struggles, and depth of the culture. It's not just the Play Apex community, it's the internet. Now, of course, the person who tweeted this isn't Asian. The person who tweeted this is in no way, shape, or form relevant to any of the conversations. But there is one thing that this person who tweeted it does have in common with, the seeming victims, and that is the desperate ability, or the desperate need to seem virtuous. This is what we used to call, back in the early days of Gamergate 2014, we used to call this virtue signaling. This is what it is, right? You don't actually have a problem. This isn't actually an issue, but you have to create a problem somehow, because how else are you going to get likes on your tweet? And so you invent a new problem. Scrappy doesn't speak for Asians. Vladline, apparently Scrappy thinks that Scrappy does. Now, what you need to understand, of course, about most, I would say, in my opinion, at least, and you might disagree with me, you can let me know, but I genuinely think that the worst people in the world are left-wing, white, middle-class, young men and women. These are the worst people in the world. And the reason for it is they are so racist that they genuinely believe, and this is where Ubisoft comes in as well. We'll talk about Ubisoft in a second. We'll be back to them. They are so sort of superior in their own view. Because remember, in order to be a left-wing, middle-class white person, you believe that you are privileged, right? You believe that you are in a brilliant position in life. And then you look at all these other poor black people and Asian people, you know, all the people that aren't really on your level, and you feel sorry for these people because they're so far beneath you. And then you get this bright idea as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, young, white, middle-class person. You think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to be their savior. You know, these poor little black people, look how confused they are with all of this stuff. They look so confused. I'll help them. I will be their savior. And then I'll make a tweet like this one saying that VTubing belongs to Asian people and somehow that's stealing Asian culture. The funny thing is, most Asians rarely if ever give a shit about this stuff. I'm genuinely of the belief that to be on the left, you have to close your eyes really, really tightly and tell yourself, I'm a good person, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. Because when you look around you at the people that surround you, there's no way that you can believe that. So you have to keep your eyes closed. You have to sort of go, I'm not seeing any of the things that they're doing. I'm not seeing all of the lies that they keep inventing, the lies that they keep spreading, the bullshit that they keep talking. I'm just going to pretend like everything is fine. And actually, it's the people on the right. They're the evil ones. They're the ones who's bringing the worst out of us. You cannot be on the left and pretend like you don't see stuff. You have to wake up and realize that you are the bad guys. This isn't up for debate. There's no if, buts, or maybes about this. If you are on the left, you are the bad guys. You are in no way, shape, or form the good guys. In Star Wars, you are the Empire. You're not the rebels. You may have thought that you were the rebels for a long time, but you are the Empire. You are the people that want to kill free speech. You are the people that want to keep people locked up in their homes because of some big bad voodoo virus. You are the people that don't want people to even think the wrong thing. You are the people that want to kill the ability for anyone to have any conversation. You're the people that want to tell people how they should speak, what they should say, and when they're allowed to say it. You're the people that pretend like men and women. What the hell is that? That doesn't even exist. Of course, it does exist when you need it to exist, because you will both say that what even is a woman, but then also demand that trans women are indeed just women, right? Of course, just 5 minutes ago, we couldn't really say that a woman is even anything. Your side is evil. If you can't see that, you have a problem. And perhaps if you really fail to see it, it's because you have the problem. You might be part of that problem, and you might not even notice it. The amount of people that I've spoken to over the last few weeks, because of the work that I do and the videos that I make, who were left-wing. I'm talking people who voted Democrat their entire lives, who are now saying, I can't believe these were my people once upon a time. The things that I used to believe, the things that I thought was good, I can't believe this is what happened. I can't believe this is how it turned out. This is the evil that it has become. All I can hope is that we get to wake more of these people up, and more people sort of open their eyes and realize that their belief systems are heavily compromised, and their views are heavily compromised. And we're going to be talking about this quite a bit during tonight's stream, because there's a lot more to this particular story. But what you just saw with Scrappier, these are the developers. Every single developer at Ubisoft is like our Scrappier. They're the same people. You see, they believe that what they're doing for the Japanese people right now is such a favor. The Japanese people should be groveling at their feet. Everyone should be so excited for the fact that they're finally bringing a black samurai to the world. And that's why they keep getting everything wrong. You see, because when you're the white savior, it's not really important whether or not you're correct, whether or not your facts check out. I mean, you're the savior. Why would anyone even check you on this? You're the good guy. All it would take is 2 minutes to Google Japanese calligraphy to figure out, we did not write this in Japanese calligraphy. It would take less than 30 seconds to go, what is a Torii gate and what would happen if I make it broken? Would that be insensitive to anyone? Because that's genuinely how I found out. I literally just typed into Google broken Torii gate. Guess what's the first one that pops up? Here, it's the Second World War one. It's the memorial one. It would take less than 10 seconds to Google that to realize, oh wait. It would take probably less than that to just quickly Google, where does boba tea originate from? Before, I don't know, handing out a recipe and pretending like it's authentically Japanese. You cannot make this shit up. The sad part is Ubisoft, and I think we spoke about this the other day, but Ubisoft is in a race against time, and their time is running out. From Ubisoft's perspective, they need Tencent to buy them as quickly as possible because they're drowning in debt. Tencent, on the other hand, is saying, let's see how it plays out. Release your game and we'll talk. Because Tencent knows the second Assassin's Creed Shadows bombs, Ubisoft will be worth less than nothing. So Tencent can swoop in, buy it for cents on the dollar, and walk away with all of those IPs. Ubisoft knows that the second Assassin's Creed Shadows bombs, they're out of a studio, and the Guillemot family needs to pack up and leave. They don't want to do that. So they're sort of stuck. The game is coming out next month, and I don't think it's going to be good. I think this is going to be a failure of epic proportions. And I kind of hope it is. I really want this game to fail. It's rare that I say this. It's rare that I want games to fail, but I want this game to fail. I genuinely want this game to fail, and I genuinely want most of the Ubisoft employees out of jobs because they don't deserve to be there. That's okay, because your kindness can only be abused so many times before you no longer care. It's not just one side. If we want to look at it that way, both sides of the extreme want it gone. Tencent also wants to change the leadership. Yeah, of course they want to. I would want to. Well, at least they can retire on a yacht. The Guillemot family might actually have so much debt that they're not going to be able to retire at all. Not on a yacht, at least. They might have to go stand in line for some food stamps. It looks like shit. It had too many controversies. Most likely it will tank. Man, I grew up playing Rayman. What a sad time. That Ubisoft logo used to hype me up. So, Beer Expert, there's an interesting thing that Daniel Vavra shared on his X, which, genuinely speaking, I think a lot of people don't think about it that way. I think a lot of people, myself included, you sort of hear Bioware and you just think, oh, Bioware, the RPG guys. Or you think Ubisoft and you think, oh, yeah, the Assassin's Creed guys. studios don't make games. The developers at studios make games. I'm gonna see if I can find this. If I can find this post for you guys, because it was really, really insightful, and it sort of plays into the whole conversation that we have today, or that I want to have with you guys today. Here we go. So you have Daniel Vavra. He says the following. Warner Brothers has closed 3 studios. One of them is Monolith Productions, to whom I have many memories of my youth, especially of their games Blood and Fear. It's sad, of course, but it's good to ask the question, do companies make games, and any art for that matter, or do people? Because if you look at the credits of the aforementioned classics, you'll find that none of the original creators were currently working at Monolith anymore. Even the main faces of their last big game, Shadow of Mordor, have been with the other companies for a few years now. So what is a company? Can company create and carry creative potential? Or is it just a logo stuck on some community of people? And if over time the same logo is stuck on 2 groups of completely different people, is it still the same company? I don't think so. I believe that people do make art. I watch Steven Spielberg movies, not Warner movies. Lucasfilms more or less ended with when George Lucas left. I don't have much sentiment for game companies. It's creative people who does matter. And while we're at it, let's at least end on a good note. Destroyer of Worlds, Kathleen Kennedy, is leaving Disney by the end of 2025. And of course, I wish the devs for Monolith all the best and hope they find better jobs soon. Every Ubisoft game is on sale right now. Dude, they're desperate, Mr. White Fox. They are desperate. The truth is, Daniel is correct in everything he said here. Not a single word is wrong. When I look, for example, at World of Warcraft, and I look at what happened to Blizzard, when you compare Blizzard 15 years ago to Blizzard today, and the reason I'm talking about Blizzard, for those of you that don't know, I come from Blizzard, right? I come from that side of the industry. I made World of Warcraft videos for 7 years before I left my channel and started this one. So World of Warcraft has been a part of my life for 7 years, but actually for longer, because before I started my channel, I've been playing World of Warcraft since 2005, right? So I've been playing World of Warcraft pretty much my entire adult life. And the interesting thing is when you look back and you realize the company that made TBC, Wrath of the Lich King, even Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria, that company is not this company. The current Blizzard has nothing in common with the Blizzard from 15, 20 years ago. The people who were there are no longer there. The people who make the decisions in World of Warcraft are no longer the same people. The people who write the story are no longer the same people. So to expect the same game is folly. It will never happen. They don't know how to do it. And even if they did know how to do it, they can't do it because it wouldn't come from the heart. And that is genuinely one of the topics I think we should be discussing today. Because I do think that we're about to see the death of at least a large chunk of the gaming industry. I'm reminded, for example, Jason Schreier. Now, I covered this I think it was like 20 or 30 minutes after he did it. After he made this post. But this is Jason Schreier talking about the death of games media. How the games media has been basically, I guess you could say, replaced over the last decade. And of course, it all started in 2014. This was the catalytic moment. It was the moment where the games media exposed themselves. And Jason Schreier basically in this report writes just that. writes that there's almost no one left. There's less than 24 people left in the game's media. The vast majority of them write guides and SEO and aggregates news from Twitter. There's no one left to actually do news. There's no one left to actually do exposés. They've all been fired or left the industry. And the sad part is, you see, and no one will ever acknowledge this, but their demise is also what led to the demise of the gaming industry. Now, I'm still trying to figure out if I want to show you this video. I watched the video earlier today from the ARC convention. I've been basically watching everything from the ARC convention. I found it super fun. You know what? Maybe we will react to that. Maybe we will react to that. I'll show you guys, because there's one part of the video where he says something that is so important, in my opinion. So important, in my opinion. And it's what's happening in the gaming industry as well. So this is Paul Marshall. You guys will hear everything he has to say. I found the talk super, super interesting.
Good afternoon. My subject is free markets and good governance. Now, I am a hedge fund manager, and some might say that hedge fund managers are to good governance what highwaymen are to road safety.
It's not wrong, right? When I heard him say he's a hedge fund manager first, I immediately thought, wow, come on. Like, why would I listen to a hedge fund manager about capitalism or about good governance? I'm not going to pause as often in this video because there's one specific part that I want you to hear. But I think the rest of it is also super important because, okay, let me explain to you why I'm showing you this video and why it's important for you to understand this. Everything that is currently happening in the gaming industry isn't isolated to the gaming industry. And I know most of you say, yeah, of course, bro, it's just wokeness. But do you understand where the wokeness actually came from? In the 1960s, the communists in America got their asses kicked. They were basically shut down, and the communist movement in America ran into a brick wall. What they couldn't understand was the fact that they were rejected. They couldn't understand why ordinary Americans did not want to be good little communists. But they had a plan. You see, they correctly identified what they did wrong. And their new plan was the infection of the institutions. They knew that if they wanted to win, they needed to go after the institutions. They needed to get the universities. They needed to get the students. Because it would start in grassroots. Students are stupid. Young people are. I was young once. I know. You're willing to believe literally anything. The government wants to give you free shit. Holy crap, let's go. Because you don't work. You don't actually earn your own living. And so it's easy for you to justify that other people should pay for you because you've never worked a day in your life, at least not yet. And so that's exactly what they did. You see, looking at the communist downfall in the 1960s and how they rebranded themselves, we can learn a lot from 2014 and the Gamergate movement. Because during the Gamergate movement, the exact same thing happened. In 2014, 2015, the Gamergate movement got dealt a bloody nose. Massive, massive bloody nose. And we thought we'd won. You know, when Anita Sarkeesian was exposed as a giant grifter and also happened to scam her own followers out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when Zoe Quinn was revealed as a grifter, also scamming her followers out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, the gamers rightfully thought we'd won. right? The two people that caused all of this have been exposed for the grifters that they are. We won. But of course, we didn't win. What happened was exactly the same as the communist movement, because they are the same thing. They went underground. They realized in 2014 that the audience was not yet ready to receive the message. The audience was not yet ready to bend the knee. And so they went underground. And for a while, myself and probably all of you, we'd sometimes see stuff happen in our video games. I remember the very first time World of Warcraft released the update that went from male and female to body type A and B. I didn't even make anything of it. I don't think I even noticed. Because, who cares? It is what it is. You see, that was exactly it. That was the idea. The idea was that no one would notice the stuff that they're doing. They would move slow. And they would get it done slowly. And then, of course, we have basically the success of Gamergate 2. We have an employee from Sweet Baby Inc. to thank for all of this. And in fact, one day when we know who that guy actually is in real life, can't remember his name now. But when we figure that out, we should probably send him flowers. And I genuinely mean flowers. This is not some veiled threat. Because without him, we would never have known. Cabrutus was basically an unknown. A small, tiny little group on Steam calling his game woke. Who knew? No one knew who Cabrutus was. And if he did not tweet out to his fans, trying to get them to dogpile onto Cabrutus, none of us would have known. We would never have known. It would have just continued, and they would have continued to infect our video games. And we would have continued to feel weird. Like, why are developers doing this? This is like the weirdest shit that the developers are doing. But of course, it finally got exposed. The reason is that all of this is part, and the thing that makes communism so dangerous is that communism isn't just a political system. It's not just an economic system. It's a cultural system, it's an economic system, it's a political system. It's a religion. Socialism and communism, when you speak to people who actually come from socialist, communist countries, they'll tell you, it's a religion. The government is your god, and you do what they say. Them be the rules. So I'm showing you this video for multiple reasons. As you guys know, I am a giant capitalist. I'm a huge fan of capitalism. But then also, he gets to a pretty interesting part in his talk where he talks about what went wrong. What went wrong and how can we fix it? What should we fix? And I think there's a lot of lessons there for the gaming industry as well. But we'll talk about it when we get there.
But hedge fund managers are also specialists at speaking uncomfortable truths. And that is part of what we are here to do at ARC, so bear with me. We want to do three things in the business stream over the next 3 days. First, rejoice in the abundance that true free enterprise and free markets create. Second, acknowledge how free markets can be captured and how they tend towards corporatism and cronyism unless they are firmly checked. And third, to explore what good governance might really look like and how free markets and human innovation can be combined with good governance to ensure human flourishing. The theme of abundance will run all the way through this conference. Human development resembles a hockey stick. For 2 millennia before the year 1800, standards of living more or less flatlined. More than 90% of the planet lived in what is today classified as extreme poverty. Then something happened. That something was the way scientific innovation and free markets came together to create the Industrial Revolution. GDP per capita started...
Mike, here's the problem, okay? So, the game that you're trying to play here, the whole, oh, but it's the left and the right, only works if there are actual right-wing developers and journalists pushing right-wing ideology into video games. Please name the game. If you want to play the, oh, both sides game, name the game. What game is there that pushes right-wing ideology onto gamers? If you can name the game, we can have this conversation. Because I happen to be of the belief that politics, modern-day politics, has no place in video gaming. But I hate this sort of the game that people like to play, where they go, oh, it's both sides. But usually the only reason we say it's both sides is to excuse our own side. We don't want to say my side is bad. And so in order to excuse my side's badness, I say, well, it's both sides, actually. Both sides have bad apples. It's like, no. You are right. Both sides do have bad apples. But in this instance, when it comes to video games, it's only your side that's the problem. Your side needs to be eradicated in the gaming industry. And I don't talk about the people, I mean the ideology. We need to get rid of that ideology because it is left-wing politics that is destroying the gaming industry. It's not both sides. Both sides don't have a claim equal in the gaming industry. You want to talk about both sides on the political sphere or on the grander national sphere, or even the international sphere, that's a different story. We can have that conversation. Although there, I would still argue the left is by far the greatest evil. But when it comes to gaming, in the gaming space, the right does not and has not posed a threat to gaming or the indoctrination of gaming for decades, if ever. I don't think there's ever been a right-wing video game. There's games that aren't political, sure, but I can't think of a single game that I would classify as politically right.
Rising, first in Holland and Great Britain, then in the rest of Western Europe. It rose as much in 50 years as it had risen in the previous 1800 years. That magic formula was then shared across the world. In the last 75 years, extreme poverty across the world has fallen from 90% to 10%. It has halved in the past 20 years alone.
Why do young people not know this? Why do young people not know about the absolute glories of capitalism? This boggles the mind. The fact that young people scream for communism when it's only capitalism that have led to the abundance that you see around you today.
Free market capitalism is the greatest instrument of poverty relief that the world has ever seen. Free markets and scientific innovation can and will also solve the major problems facing humanity today, not least dealing with the challenges associated with climate change. The primary role that free markets play in generating prosperity is a given, axiomatic for almost everyone here today, but it is not recognized by those who are at the wrong end of disruptive innovation. It is not recognized by many of the younger generation who do not see the benefits trickle down to them in the way they did to us boomers. And it is not...
And this is where it's going to get interesting. He is actually going to explain to you why young people... So my earlier question was largely rhetorical. Insofar as I know it's the education system that fails young people. But I think the education system goes further than that. I've told you guys before, there are things that I don't like when it comes to, for example, right-wing political analysts like Ben Shapiro will go on air and say capitalism is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Just look at America. Look at how amazing life is. And I go, what capitalism? Where? Where is this capitalism that you're referring to? Because the capitalism that you're referring to, when you tell young people, look at how beautiful America is, look at how beautiful the capitalistic system is, there's a whole bunch of young people that's going, bro, I can't pay off my student debts because it's gotten out of control. If I get sick, I'm screwed. I'm never going to own a house. I'm never going to be able to buy a car even that's new. What capitalism, right? And the problem is Ben Shapiro is also purporting the wrong information, because we should be honest and recognize that what you have at the moment isn't capitalism. But he's going to explain it. It's actually super important that you listen to this. I know it's a bit more political, and we'll get this back to gaming in a second, but just listen to his explanations. It's actually super cool.
Recognized by the people left behind in flyover country who have seen their factories shuttered and their communities uprooted. For these people, free market capitalism faces a crisis of legitimacy. So we need to stand up for free market capitalism, but we also need to be careful what exactly it is that we are defending. Ultimately, free markets only truly prosper in societies where there is a proper shared understanding of virtue and mutual honor. That is why the City of London prospered for so many years on little more than the ethic of my word is my bond. Corrupt societies, on the other hand, practice tribalism and cronyism. Think Somalia, or Sicily, or Davos. The biggest danger to free markets today is that we are losing that shared understanding of virtue. When virtue breaks down, you begin to see the emergence of mutant strains of capitalism. So let's talk about free market capitalism's mutant siblings. There are three big ones. First, monopoly capitalism. If you play the game of Monopoly long enough, somebody always ends up controlling the board, just like real life. Some in Silicon...
Dude, I remember being a kid playing Monopoly against my dad. I would get so angry because eventually he would own everything. Like, he would own everything. I would be out of money, and I could never understand how the hell he gets to do this. Because I'm going around, I'm collecting my $200, you know, at the start of the game. I'm putting up a couple of houses here or there. This dude's already running around with hotels and shit. I could never understand it, and it made me so angry. And I can understand why, you know, a lot of young people are angry, because they also see the same shit, right? They see the same stuff. Why does everyone own all of this stuff and I can own nothing? In the bank, because I would constantly embezzle funds. Blue, of course.
Silicon Valley argue that these winners have earned the right to enjoy the fruits of their success and the right to price gouge to their heart's content. If Apple wants to charge a 30% tax on their app, some might say, let them.
Jogran, how you doing, bro?
Privilege. The problem with this argument is that the genius behind Apple was Steve Jobs, not the corporate executives who are now clipping the coupons. Predatory behavior is rife in the US, whether it is the Apple App Store or the way Uber treats their drivers or airlines treat their passengers. In most US airports, one airline controls over half the landing rights. Many states have health insurance markets where the top two insurers have an 80 or 90% market share. Perhaps most serious of all, two companies, Google and Meta, control not only half the US digital advertising market, but half the global market. Given the concerns that many of us have about the curtailment of free speech, this is an issue which goes well beyond monopoly capitalism. So I say gently to my US friends that maybe your monopoly laws need to be looked at with a fresh pair of eyes.
Thing is, so at the risk of making this super economic, and I don't like monopoly laws, because usually monopoly laws, the way they're enacted, cause a lot more harm than good. Because effectively what the government does is it steps in and breaks the companies apart. Because government is involved with people in business, people who know what the hell they're doing, you end up ultimately with companies that can't operate because the government didn't know what the hell they were doing. So I don't like that. My personal opinion is we need to have a lot more regulation that opens the board, right? So rather than close down Apple or close down Meta or close down Google, pass regulation and legislation that opens the board, that allows for more people to play the game. Because that, I think, is what ultimately leads to companies like Meta, companies like Google, losing 50% of the market share, is if there's more people playing the game. That would be, in my opinion, the better option, rather than using monopoly laws. Antitrust is how Rockefeller became a billionaire. The thing is, antitrust, especially in the US, and you'll hear why it's so nightmarish, because antitrust enacted by a government that is mostly owned by the corporations are always going to pass the legislation that helps the corporations.
Maybe the new Speaker of the House will be able to help. The second mutant sibling is crony capitalism. Joseph Schumpeter, the great economist of entrepreneurship, predicted that free market capitalism would end in a form of corporatism not so different from socialism itself. Corporatism is not free enterprise.
No.
It is a sort of nightmare endgame for free enterprise, where the managerial and administrative classes take control and manage the system in their own best interests. Let me tell you a story. We are just a few minutes away from Deptford Docks, where the East India Company was launched in 1599. It was one of the first ever joint stock companies, enabling entrepreneurs to connect with providers of capital in an enterprise of pooled risk. The joint stock company was the original cornerstone of free market capitalism. But within a generation, that original spirit was corrupted. Loot became one of the first Indian words to enter the English language. It was an accurate description of what the East India Company were up to in Bengal. By 1756, they had an army of 20,000 soldiers and had embarked on what has been called the supreme act of corporate violence in world history. Eventually, their power was challenged by Parliament through the impeachment of Warren Hastings. But the impeachment failed, because at that stage,
listen to this,
nearly a quarter of MPs held stock in the company.
Is that not what's happening at the moment? Let me ask you guys a question. When Trump and Musk announced that they're going after USAID, right? They're going to be attacking USAID. Did you guys not find it interesting, given what we now know USAID did? Did you guys not find it interesting that it was the Democratic lawmakers that were jumping this high, sort of trying to shut it down, trying to stop them from shutting down USAID? I don't want to call it USAID because the aid wasn't their business. Aid isn't what they did, right? It was the Democrats. I guarantee you, now mark my words on this, if Trump announced tomorrow that they're going after Google, there will be Democrat and Republican senators and congressmen jumping this high. They will freak out. Why? Because every single one of your congressmen and your senators trade stocks. They own stocks in these companies. They get rich off of these companies. So there's a vested in the person that came up with the idea that congressmen and senators are allowed to own stocks. That person needs to be shot. In what universe is that a good idea? The people who's meant to regulate the market also happen to make money off of the people in the market. Like, what the hell are we even talking about here? But you hear that, right? When they tried to impeach the man that controlled the East India Company, the impeachment failed because the MPs, the members of parliament, the members of Congress, well, it would be the equivalent of the members of Congress, were shareholders in the East India Company. So of course they didn't want the East India Company to be impeached or fail because they were getting rich.
What ought to worry us today in the 21st century is that too many successful companies follow the trajectory of the East India Company. Today, neither Google nor Goldman Sachs nor Pfizer employs a standing army of 20,000 soldiers, at least as far as I know. On the other hand, some 2/3 of Congress receives funding from the pharmaceutical industry.
Yep.
Half of them receive funding from the gun lobby. We live in an age of cronyism. We even have an exclusive venue, an annual conference in the Swiss mountains, where the cronies gather once a year to collude in the most efficient way possible on a global scale.
True.
US corporations spend over $2 billion per annum lobbying in Washington, D.C. European corporations spend over 1 billion euros per annum lobbying in Brussels. This spending has a high return on investment, a high RLI, as you might call it, return on lobbying investment. Take Big Pharma. Big Pharma spends $356 million per annum lobbying in the US. Pfizer alone spends $11 million.
Dude, I want you to think about lobbying for a second. You're supposed to make money by offering a good product, right? That's how you're supposed to. You bring out a poll that takes people's headaches away, and people buy your poll, and that's how you make your money. What's the lobbying about? Why are you lobbying? If you have a good poll, a poll that solves headaches, you don't need to lobby the US government. It's when you actually dive in and you realize, oh, the lobbying is so that they can get around rigorous testing, so that their drugs don't get tested too often for all sorts of weird stuff, so they can fast track certain things. That's where the lobbying comes in. Also, one of the big ones, of course, and this is where most of the lobbying funds go, is to ensure that once I have marketed my little poll, I own that little poll into perpetuity. So you all know what patent law is, right? Patent law, and to be fair, I'm not saying that patent law shouldn't exist for drugs. Oftentimes the R&D that goes into the creation of a new drug costs hundreds of millions of dollars. So if the company doesn't know that they're going to be able to sell that poll sort of unopposed for a specific amount of time, they're not going to put in the R&D. They're not going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars if someone else can literally just take their shit and leave, right? So I'm not against that. But what you will oftentimes see, and this happens very often, they'll patent their drug for a set amount of time. Then as soon as the patent is about to fall, they'll change the formula. So they'll add a little bit more caffeine, or they'll add a little bit more sugar. They just change the formula slightly and repatent the drug.
I'm a rich
man. And now it remains their patent. And you just sort of ask yourself, how the hell did we get here? Patlin, thank you so much for the 5 community subs. Can we get some hearts in chat, ladies and gentlemen? Some hearts in chat. I really appreciate you, Patlin. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's disgusting what has happened. to the world. And the sadness is, and I know many of you might be listening saying, but Aku, you're South African, why do you even care? It all starts in America. If America doesn't change, the world will not change. Because, like it or not, I know my president likes to pretend America doesn't matter, but like it or not, America is the only country that matters. If America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. So we have to hope that America can get it right, because if America can get it right, the rest of the world will follow. Now, my country, my government will go down in flames because they don't like to listen to anyone, but other countries will listen and will do what America does, because it's how it works.
In 2021, Pfizer made $35 billion of incremental sales and at least $10 billion of incremental profits from the COVID vaccine. They were granted fast-track authorization and immunity from all liabilities, just in case there were side effects.
How does that pass? Like, how in the hell does that pass? Not only, yes, you can fast-track your drug and put it on the market without any tasting. Oh, and also, if by some miracle your drug happens to kill millions of people, you can't get sued. It's all good. It's like, what?
That is what I call...
Now, I'm not suggesting that COVID, the vaccines killed millions of people, but imagine if it had. So let's quickly go to alternative world here. Imagine there's a world, right? We're back in 2021. The COVID vaccines come out and everyone goes and lines up and, shoots it right in the fucking vein. Imagine if people a week later started dropping like flies. You hear friends of yours dying, family members dying. Imagine if the death rate is 1 in every 5 people that take the vaccine die. And now imagine you learn there's nothing you can do. You can't sue them. You can't punish them. Because they are immune to this shit. How would that have made you feel?
Lobbying money well spent. Or take banking. 2008 still leaves a long shadow on Western politics, as everyone saw how the bankers played the politicians for patsies. They privatized their gains and socialized their losses. This gross injustice I'm
not vaccinated either.
Rather the contrary. 10 years of QE enabled bank CEOs and executives to enrich themselves through the merry-go-round of rising asset prices and lavish buybacks.
Yep.
What we have seen from the 2008 crisis to its aftermath may be the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich since the Norman Conquest. As someone who has worked in financial markets for the past 35 years, I have been a big beneficiary of this. And I worry deeply that financial cronyism, including the role of central banks, is in danger of discrediting true free market capitalism, which has been the engine of so much of our prosperity. The third mutant sibling is woke capitalism. Woke capitalism is the imposition of a top-down ideology onto the free market system by politically motivated bureaucrats, either from the public or the private sector.
I told you guys we're going to get to the gaming segment. Here's the first part of it. Does this sound familiar to you? Top-down approach. You have the woke consultants at the top infiltrating and spreading their woke virus throughout the whole games industry. You have the developers that are now part of the bridge system, which also push this woke ideology. And this gets pushed into the market and it goes everywhere. You look at the number of studios that are buying up small indie developers, buying up developers all over the place. Look at Ubisoft. How many developers have Ubisoft absorbed during the course of its reign? EA. How many companies have EA absorbed during its reign? You have these giant conglomerates that go around buying up smaller studios and infecting those games with their ideologies. And then we wonder why the games industry is in the state that it's in. It all boils down to just way too much money in the market, and this brought vultures into the system. But we'll get to the real little nugget here, because when I listened to this guy just explain the stuff that's about to happen, I was just like, dude, this is literally what's wrong with the gaming industry.
Their ideology is...
Because wherever you want, bro. Like, if you are willing to give me some of your money, you can give it wherever you want. I'm very happy to take it, and I am grateful for it. I'm humbled by the fact that you even want to, so thank you for that. But wherever you feel you get the most benefit out of it, I'm happy.
Framed through ESG. In some cases, there is also a garnish of diversity, equity, and inclusion. To be fair, corporate governance in the public equity markets has not worked well for a long time. This is because of a genuine market failure known as the agency problem. Fund managers, acting as agents, have mostly failed to ensure proper governance on behalf of the beneficial owners of the shares, mainly because it was too burdensome or too expensive. Into this governance vacuum stepped BlackRock, the indexation industry, the United Nations, and of course, the European Union. The intent behind all three elements of ESG, environment, social, and governance, may actually be a good one. But the effect has been to create a set of standardized, ideologically based taxonomies which have very little to do with good governance. But the correct response...
I mean, whenever you hear ESG, DEI, you need to know where it comes from. It comes from Davos, right? It comes from the World Economic Forum. Who's the people that go to Davos? It's the rich bitches, right? It's all the billionaires and the millionaires of the world. Do you really think that they're going to come up with a system that benefits us, the small man on the street? Do you really think that their systems are meant for us? They couldn't care less about you or me.
To woke capitalism should not be to revert to the status quo ante. Instead, we should all install the kind of governance that Adam Smith would have been proud of. That means every fund manager and beneficial owner taking it seriously, using technology to vote their shares in their unique, case-specific way, and engaging directly with investee companies to drive sound governance practices. By this...
I wonder sometimes if that isn't one of the big issues within the gaming industry. So what he's talking about here is effectively the large index funds. Now, for those of you that maybe have never bought or sold your own shares, you can buy into these index funds. It's oftentimes the safest place to buy into. An index fund is literally just a collection of a bunch of different shares. So you have... Oh, thanks for the 300 bits. I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you. You're far too kind. Say, for example, you can buy one that has 100 different companies, all part of that share. So basically, the idea is you spread your risk. Out of those 100 companies, hopefully most of them make money and your money grows. Those are index funds. The problem, of course, is those index funds, if you look at game companies and the people that own shares in game companies, it's not individuals. It's all index funds. It's all of those investors, the people that we oftentimes say the games companies only make games for the investors. It's not individual investors that own the shares in these companies. It's companies like BlackRock, companies like Vanguard, index funds. Now, here's why this gets important. You see, those index funds couldn't care less about the actions of individual companies that they invest in. Like, my index fund, for example, I have one index fund that I invest in. I highly doubt that they're going to go to Rainbow Foods, which is a chicken manufacturer here, and tell Rainbow Foods, hey, the way you guys kill your chickens is not the right way to do. You're going to run out of chickens if you keep going this way. Why do they care? If Rainbow Chickens runs out of chicken, they'll just drop Rainbow Chickens and they'll just take a new company on board for the index. It's as simple as that, right? They can just chop and change. It's not really a problem. Sure, there's paperwork and shit, but technically, whether Rainbow Chickens survives or thrives or dies, it matters not to the index fund because they're not exposed. Whereas if you or I were investors in, say, for example, EA, we would care very deeply about how the company is run, right? Like, if I see EA doing a bunch of shit that I don't agree with, I would be the first person to say, hold up, I'm going to take my money if you guys don't fix your shit. The way you're running the company at the moment is going to destroy this company, and I'm not going to go for it. The issue is there's no oversight because the index funds don't care because they're so spread amongst sort of all of these different companies to hedge their bets effectively. So this is another part of the problem. And Frederick, don't be so quick to say that capitalism doesn't work for the arts. The current system that we have doesn't work for the arts, but there's no reason to say that capitalism doesn't. I'll give you an example of capitalism and how it could work for the arts. Take, for example, crowdsourcing. Now, of course, there's a number of problems with crowdsourcing and a number of games that come out in crowdsourcing that turns out to be scams. But think of the system, not the current examples. Imagine if you had a well-regulated crowdsourcing market. So a marketplace that was well-regulated. If you're a company that want to make a game on a crowdsourcing website or on this sort of marketplace, you have to sign documents. You have to legally submit that you're going to make this game. And if you don't make this game, there's criminal charges that can be laid against you. So it's regulated. Suddenly there, capitalism is phenomenal for video games. Because instead of a company having to go, a new studio having to go look for investors, it can literally just go to this marketplace and the players become the investors in that game. The players are the ones that help make the game. Things like that. That is part of the capitalist market, right? That's capitalism at work. So don't look at the current system and say capitalism doesn't work for it, because the current system is sick. Our current capitalist system is sick. And you can't judge the current system and how it impacts the arts on how capitalism would impact the arts.
This invisible hand, we would end up with responsible, sensible outcomes. There is one final feature of free markets that we need to talk about, and that is the problem of creative destruction. Successful new businesses disrupt legacy businesses and destroy jobs at rivals. Free trade does this at scale. Mm-hmm. We have just been through 2 decades of massive global disruption, following the opening up of the...
So, Frederick, what you're talking about, yes, to some extent, but you also have to acknowledge the kind of art that you're referring to there is art from what I like to call true artists. So true artists, generally speaking, don't care about money. They don't really care about making money. Money to them is just sort of like a side effect. It's a side project at best. So they're not going to be the ones to really make gaming studios or build massive games. They're just not interested in that. They're interested in just painting and sort of, or writing music or whatever the case might be. In that sense, the truth is there's no system that works for those artists, right? Because they're not interested in the system itself. The system itself would be burdensome. I don't think games companies... I think games can be art, but I don't think game developers are artists, not in the truest sense of the word. They're people who can draw really well, right? And they're people who might be able to create some incredible images, but they're not artists, not in the truest sense of the word, not in the sense of a Van Gogh, right? They're more just very good. They have very good skills, and they know how to market those skills. So I do think there should be a differentiation there.
WTO to China. Advocates of free markets, like myself, need to explain how we deal with the disruption they can cause to our towns and communities. Today,
Mike, because the vast majority of artists that work in the gaming industry, I'm almost willing to bet if you remove the person telling them what to make, they wouldn't know what to make. They're very good, right? They have a lot of skill. I'll give you a great example of this in in line with what we're talking about now. You know the Austrian painter. We won't say his name because YouTube doesn't like when you say his name. The Austrian painter. He was considered a very good painter, but he had no vision. Like, he could, if you needed a building to look exactly like the building that the building is, he could do that for you. He would paint that or draw that building exactly like that building is perfectly. The issue was he had no vision whatsoever. There was no other application to it. Like, he sees the thing, he can do the thing. Now, is he an artist? In the rawest sense of the word, yes, he can draw, right? Therefore, artist. He can do stuff in the arts. But is he a true artist? In other words, is he a Leonardo da Vinci or a Van Gogh? People who see the world through a specific perspective and can capture a moment in time through that perspective and have that perspective be unique. I think that's super rare. I don't think it's something. I think it's incredibly rare. I think if you took 10,000 people that can draw and you put them into a room, you might get one that can do that. The others, if you told them paint this mountain range, they'll be able to paint the mountain range exactly as the mountain range look, but they won't be able to express it. That's the difference. Some artists, a tiny handful of artists, have the ability to not only draw the mountain, but to express the mountain. To the point where when you look at the mountain tells a story. I would argue most people that have skills in drawing, is skilled at painting, doesn't have that skill. That's why I said, I don't call them true artists. They're artists in the rawest sense of the word. They can create art. But their art is more, we want to make a game. This game is going to be in the future. Great, we can make that. Do you want lightsabers? No, it's not Star Wars. Fine, what do you want? Well, we want guns. Great, I can do that. You give me the ideas, and I'll make those ideas work. Right? I'll put those ideas down, and I'll make sure that they fit. But it's a great example. My cousin plays piano majestically well. He plays the piano and it's truly beautiful. You give him any song, he'll listen to the song, and about 10 minutes later he'll be able to play it. Just from listening to it, he'll be able to play it. He can't write his own songs. He doesn't hear the music. So when he's not listening to a song, trying to copy it and play it, he doesn't hear the music on his own. And I would say that's sort of the difference. True artists see the art, even they see what's not there. Whereas most people that can draw just see what's there. And they can replicate it. They can draw from it, but they can't draw what's not there. What would be required for it. My granny's an artist, her pie straight apart. That's possible.
This challenge is starker than ever because we have entered the age of the knowledge economy. Business leaders no longer live next to the factory they are closing. They don't even live in the same town.
Did you guys listen to that? Did you hear that? Because that's the big bit. That's the big bit. I'm going to go back a little and then I'll play it for you.
With the disruption they can cause to our towns and communities. Today, this challenge is starker than ever because we have entered the age of the knowledge economy. Business leaders no longer live next to the factory they are closing.
When he said this, not only did I weep for the state of our current economical system, because that is so true. If you go back 150 years, you would have the business owner, the person that owns the business or the factory, oftentimes either living right above their business or factory or right next to it. So closing the factory, you'll see the devastation that you're causing. This is your community. If you just close the factory, you'll be judged and attacked by the people in that community because you just closed the place where they're supposed to work. So you were responsible for the people around you as much as you were responsible for yourself. That's obviously gone now. So weeping for the economy aside, think of gaming. How do you guys think this relates to gaming? What was your first thought as a gamer when you heard this line? Dave's not playing their own games, okay? Anyone else? Who make the game don't play the game? Okay. Yep. The only thing that can feel that. Everything is made in Asia. The argument that the loud minority can somehow result in massive losses makes no sense. Asmongold is holding down the gaming front. The question was, Vengeance, when you heard him say the factories that are being, the people who closed the factory no longer live next to the factory, what did that make you think of the gaming industry? Like, how did you think of the gaming industry? Mr. White Fox, what do you mean I still haven't? We have spoken about Ubisoft. Is there anything that I've missed about Ubisoft that I should have said? Disconnected from true customer, single player enthusiast. How you doing, bro? They're not connected to anything. All right. So most of you collectively have felt what I felt when I heard him say this. See, the problem with the gaming industry today, if you go back 30 years ago, we go back 30 years ago, and we look at the average gamer or game developer 30 years ago, what do you see? You see a Mike Morhaime. Nerds. Super nerds. I mean, these were the people who were bullied in school because they were nerds. They didn't play sports. They dreamt of making video games because they were addicted to video games. You know, they found their escape in playing Magic the Gathering or D&D or basically anything that wasn't the real world because they were living in these fantasy worlds that games created for them. And so they went on to make their own games as gamers. The problem today is it's sort of faceted approach that creates the problem that we're in now. Problem number one is the people who own the studios that make our games are not gamers themselves anymore. Almost every single game studio today that is owned by a suit is owned by a suit that doesn't play video games. And probably has never played video games. How do we know this? Because the overwhelming majority of suits on the corporate level of studios studied things like MBAs. They studied business. They're not gamers. They don't care about gaming. They're there to make money. I mean, that's their main reason for existing, is to make money. The developers is also a super big problem. You see, You go back 25, 30 years ago to the first game developers, and these weren't people who were studying video game design. These were just gamers who happened to know how to code, or perhaps happened to know how to draw, or perhaps happened to have the ability to figure out how to animate. And as a result of this, they went into game design because they were gamers themselves. They loved the games and they wanted to make those games. Instead, we have turned it now into a proper career. You go to university, 4 years later, you have your degree. Congratulations, you're a game developer. But of course, you're not a game developer. You just happen to have a degree in game development. But when you look, for example, at something like Dragon Age the Veilguard, would you argue that Dragon Age the Veilguard was made by a game developer? What exactly did they develop? Because as a political piece, it works, I guess, pretty well. As a game, not so much. So that's problem number 2. Problem number 1, the people that own our companies, that own our studios that make our games, don't play video games themselves. Problem number 2, the vast majority of people that go into games development because it's something to do. I don't know what to study, but I have been told I have to go to university. May as well go study gaming. I once played Pac-Man and I kind of enjoyed it. Then we have a third problem. And this problem is going to be the ladies. Ladies in chat, you're up to the plate. It's time that we attack you. I'm not attacking girls in general. I'm just attacking female developers. We have a push in the gaming industry. The push is to be 50-50. 50% female, 50% male developers. That's the push. That's the hope. That's where we want to end up. The problem, of course, with this little push, if I go over to my handy little... When I go over to my handy little chart here, so these are the numbers as collected by these studies, right? So these are actual psychological studies and polling numbers and all the rest of it. When you look at the actual chart here, now remember what I said. If you're a game developer, you're likely a gamer on some level. There's roughly 3.2 billion gamers in the world today. 1.8 billion of those are male, 1.5 billion of those are female. These are the percentages. There's about 54% of male gamers are male and about 46% are female. Then, for male gamers who play mobile games, there's no statistics. They don't know how many men actually play mobile games, but what they do know is that it's not that high. And the reason for it is 44% of all women in the gaming industry play exclusively on mobile. 44%. Exclusively mobile. They don't play PC. They don't touch PC. This leaves you with about 862 million female gamers left for PC development versus 1.3 billion male gamers. So what I did with the male one is I went with some of the suggestions that say maybe 10 to 20% of male gamers play mobile only. So you still have 1.3 billion male gamers. Now, if you go through all of the studies here, I'm not going to click on all of them, but if you want these links, I'll give them to you and you can go fact check me if you want. But if you actually go through all of these links here, the studies that I found, actually I have to add the others that I've been going through because I'm working on quite a few videos on these studies. Of the now 56% of female gamers that play PC, the overwhelming majority of them, I think it's also something like almost 70% of them, play exclusively life sims. So they don't play RPGs, they don't play sports games, they don't play shooter games, they play life sims. But now remember, every game studio in the world is on this push to make 50-50. 50% female, 50% male. The numbers don't bear that out. There aren't enough good female developers in the world to do 50-50. So that's problem number 3. Problem number 1, the people that own our studios aren't gamers. Problem number 2, the overwhelming majority of developers that make our games aren't even gamers. And then problem number 3, the overwhelming majority of women that currently find themselves in the gaming space don't necessarily even play the games that they make. But because we need 50% female, we have to get them in. And we're currently up to about 25%. That's sort of where we are now, right? We're up to about 25%. It gets even worse. We can really get into the genres here. So if we want to talk genres of the women that is left that don't play life sims, so you remove the life sim gamers, about 20% of those that are left tend to play RPGs, fantasy RPGs. Another 19%, no, less than it's like 15 or 14% play sci-fi RPGs. And then you have a very tiny percentage that play, I think it's less than 2% maybe, that play sports games, and shooter games is like 8%. Maybe. Around 8%. So there's very, very, very few female gamers for all of these studios to actually draw from to make their studios 50-50 male to female ratios. And then we get to what I would say the biggest problem. Where do almost all of the game developers in the world live? Population centers. Major cities. California, London. Most of the time in Canada, it'll be Montreal, Paris. Very large, very progressive cities. Now, here's where things get really tricky, and why I think this is worth us talking about. Why we should be talking about this. I actually, and some of you might hate me for saying this, but I actually feel sorry for the game developers. And here's why. They genuinely have no idea what is going on. Imagine yourself quickly. Imagine this. Imagine yourself waking up in the morning. You get showered, you get dressed, you walk down to your Starbucks. On your way to Starbucks, or in the Starbucks, you're talking to a couple of people, and you overhear how everyone's saying Donald Trump is an idiot, asshole. You hate Donald Trump so much. He's such a thief and a liar. Someone maybe at the table right in front of you is, oh, did you hear what Trump said last night? Can you believe it? CNN had to fact check him the whole time. Then you get to work, you walk into your fancy studio, and all of your coworkers are like, dude, did you see CNN? Did you see how much Trump lied? Like, holy shit. And all of your coworkers are super DEI friendly. They want more diversity, not less. They want more inclusion, not less. They want more equity, not less. All of your coworkers vote Democrat. All of your friends vote Democrat. Over the weekend, when you're having a tofu barbecue, all of your friends that are bringing the kale chips and the tofu and the hummus or whatever the left-wing people eat, they're all talking about how amazing the new Wakanda Forever was, or whatever progressive movie left-wing people watch. And then you bring out your game, and suddenly the gamers reject your game. Like you put your cinematic out there, and your cinematic is this beautiful, amazing, celebration of diversity. And you see all these comments under the cinematic of gamers saying, oh, DEI, woke bullshit, will not watch. And you see the dislikes. If you're a developer in this moment in time, your entire world suddenly makes no sense. Every single person you meet every single day, every single person you speak to every single day, all think this cinematic is one of the greatest cinematics that's ever been made. And yet the gamers don't like it. And then you have the media, that beautiful bastion of truth, telling you it's a handful of gamers. It's just a handful of people making a lot of noise. In that moment, to not just believe them would be almost impossible. So instead, what you do is, well, yeah, that explains it. Cool, right? It's just a handful of racist gamers. These are the people that vote for Trump. Now, you would think that they would realize the fact that Trump won means that they're in the minority, but they genuinely don't. I was watching a clip of XQC responding to Hassan, or reacting to Hassan, because Hassan is attacking Trump, as he probably does every single day on his stream, and saying the general population doesn't want this. Right? Trump is saying some bullshit and Hassan is making this claim that the general population doesn't want this. And the argument that XQC makes so eloquently, and I use eloquently in inverted commas because I can hardly ever understand what XQC says. So this time I could understand what he said, and that to me rises to the level of eloquence with XQC. But XQC says, what do you mean? He won. That means the general population doesn't want whatever the fuck you want, because Trump won the election. This means that the majority of people want what Trump wants. They don't want what you want. But Hassan cannot believe that. Because from Hassan's perspective, he also lives in California. He lives in LA. Every single person he ever meets is super far left wing. So from his perspective, where are all these right wing Nazis that vote for Trump? That's why when they see the results, they claim that it was stolen. They claim that people just didn't like, people were just racist towards Kamala. That's why she lost. Because they can't believe for a second that the majority would vote for Trump, because no one they know votes for Trump. No one they know is anti-DEI. This, to me, is the four problems, the four biggest problems in the gaming industry, and why I believe the gaming industry is about to collapse. And it's going to be very, very bad for some. It's going to be very cool for others. But I don't believe that the gaming industry is in a place where it can survive this. I think far too many studios are far too entrenched within their bubble to ever really change their ways. And I think companies like Warner Brothers, for example, with their closing of the studios, and you now also have, actually, you want to know how I know for a fact Western gaming is screwed? Look at NetEase. NetEase is closing down Western studios and moving all of those IPs to China. Why is NetEase doing that? Because NetEase knows what I'm saying now. There's no talent here. There's no talent. There's just wokeness and politics and bullshit. So they're moving it to China, where they can actually just make video games. I think within the next 2 years, we're going to see something biblical. That's what I think. I think we're going to see something biblical. There's going to be a reckoning within the games industry. Now, the lucky thing for us is it doesn't matter. Let me just first ask, how many of you agree or disagree with me on this? Abaddon, why can't who set it on? I'm just checking through your messages here just to make sure that I'm not. By the way, if I'm missing your message, you can either super chat to make sure that I see it, and also I'll very much appreciate it, or just write it again and I'll try and read it. But I don't agree that he's effective. He's simply swinging his dick because he's salty. He lost the previous election. I don't agree with that. I think Trump's super effective. 100% agree, and I can't wait. Nice. Not sure what to agree with or disagree. Pretty much, I'm on your side, Kathleen. I appreciate that. Thank you. Angry about what you said a lot. Why, Mr. White Fox? So, Take Club, the important thing to remember is these things don't happen. There's a saying. I'm trying to remember how it goes in English. When you ask someone, how did you go bankrupt? The little by little and then all at once. So that's how bankruptcy works. Pretty much anyone that goes bankrupt, if you ask them, how did you go bankrupt? They'll say little by little and then all at once. Downfalls are oftentimes, this is why collapses are so very devastating. This is why market collapsing is devastating. Because the market can take years to grow and it can collapse overnight. Like literally one morning you wake up and it just falls off a cliff. This has been sort of a problem in the making for, I would say, probably a decade, maybe even more. This has been a problem in the making. The beautiful thing, and this is something that we should all give ourselves a pat on the back for, because the absolute gorgeous, most beautiful thing about all of this is this is now twice that the left has tried to infiltrate the gaming industry. Twice. And this is now twice that we are kicking them in the balls. And they're losing the fight. And the reason they're losing the fight is, again, because they're not gamers. They're not connected to gaming. So they don't understand when gamers say, listen here, we don't want politics in our video games. They don't understand this. Like, why wouldn't you want politics in your video games? You know, they can't understand it because they themselves don't know what it is to play video games. Why we love video games as much as we do. It's a sad fact, but it is what it is. Tatiana, by the way, did I say hello to you? How you doing, by the way? Haven't seen you in a while. There's quite a few faces that I haven't seen in a while, specifically over on Twitch. Obviously, you're on YouTube as well, but a lot of you are actually new. But specifically over on Twitch, there's quite a few, because I don't stream this time of night normally. So obviously, I'm getting to see a bunch of the old folk that I haven't seen in a long time. So very happy to have you guys here. Sorry, but if I type fast, I tend to invert the letters, so I may sound strange. Mr. White Fox, as long as I can understand what you're writing, I'm perfectly happy with it. You don't have to worry about it. Grab, then I go after games too. This is my first live year. I feel like I'm in a third level college class, and it's great. The engineer, I apologize for that. I find the philosophical approach to this far more interesting than the actual mechanics of it. So that's sort of like, for example, originally when I started this channel, it was just going to be gaming news. I was just going to cover gaming news. But then as I started reading about the stuff that's happening in these companies, I started getting interested in the why this was happening. So then I was like, oh shit, okay, wait, I'm going to need to find some studies here. And then I started looking for studies on like psychology and psychological approaches to things. And I spent an entire week reading about propaganda to try and figure out what is the limitations of propaganda. Turns out there's no limitations to propaganda. Actually, there is one limitation to propaganda, and that is that the intelligence of the person doing the propaganda. And that's, by the way, the thing that saves us, is the fact that the people that are trying to propagandize are too stupid to do it. Because technically speaking, based at least on the studies that I've seen, you can literally convince anyone of anything through the use of propaganda if the propaganda tool is used correctly. So very, very interesting that we haven't lost this war, especially given how hard they've been trying. You want to be into the propaganda memes? Surface is back. A move, pretty much. Iona, how you doing? I can't wait for Midnight expansion to come in. Wow. Iona, I will be making my video probably tomorrow on this, but I am out of WoW. I am done with WoW. I'm happy to be free of that game. So I don't care. I don't care. Like, whatever expansion comes next, I wish them luck. I hope you guys enjoy it. I will not be playing. I'm so happy to not be playing WoW anymore. It's probably the happiest I've been in at least the last 2.5 years. Like this last sort of month and almost 2 months now. It's probably been the happiest that I've been. Not making any WoW content, not caring about WoW lore, not looking up WoW lore, just focusing on other games, playing other games, talking about politics. I'm finally able to really dive into politics, which I super enjoy. So yeah, I'm mega happy now. Isn't the 3rd level college class a high level of debate? Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a high level debater, but it's like third level, right? Radner, how you doing, bro? Started SM2 and I'm loving it. SM2 is pretty good. Just mod that out if that's the only issue. Thundercool, how you doing, sir? I have a theory that the architect of this movement is long dead and the true believers are not effective because they believe. TMB, so the architect of the movement is Karl Marx, right? So the problem, I'm working on this video explaining the exact history of Gamergate and how we got to where we are. And part of that is communism, right? Because communism is the reason for Gamergate. It's where all of these ideas come from. Postmodernism, the idea that, you know, the sort of social engineering aspect of communism. But Karl Marx is the author of it. So the idea from Karl Marx's perspective is the government takes power and then eventually the people get power, but the people first need to stop being greedy. The issue is Karl Marx, yada yada, the stop being greedy bit. So Karl Marx says government takes power because people are greedy, and the government makes sure that people everyone's taken care of, and then the people will stop being greedy. But this bit he yada yada. So he never actually explains how you get from people are greedy and the government rules them to people are no longer greedy and now the people can run without the government. He never actually explains this middle bit. So what happens is some communists realize that this middle bit was never actually explained. And this is where things like postmodernism comes in, post-truth. The social engineering aspect comes in. So they start coming up with methods of getting humans from this place to this place. How do we get there? All of the woke stuff, all of the DEI stuff, all of the ESG stuff, all of the postmodernism stuff, all of this, transhumanism, the whole shebang, is all meant to get us from this point to this point. The reason why you see a video game and almost every single female in video games now looks like ass isn't an accident. It's not by accident that this is happening. Now, is it true that every single developer is actively working towards this utopia? No. But the consultants know what they're working towards, because those consultants are there for a reason. They're the ones that's pushing this stuff. You know, the idea that what is a woman even, you know, and the concept of there's no difference between, you know, a trans woman and a woman. All of these ideas flow from this postmodernist, post-truth, and the entire idea is actually to confuse. Right? So the concept is we need to confuse language. We need to confuse the way that we speak. This is why they love to choose things that you can't actually disagree with. So, for example, when in 2019, 2020, you had the anti-fascist movement, right? The funny thing about the anti-fascist movement is that it was very fascist-like. I mean, the anti-fascists were using fascism to be anti-fascist. Because fascism, not in its truest definition, but in its application, is the use of violence in order to force your will upon the population. That's fascism. The anti-fascists sure used a lot of violence in order to force their will upon the population. Anti-racism. When you hear someone that says, I'm anti-racist, in the truest definition of the word racism, it means to judge other people based on the color of their skin, or to apply attributes to a person as a result of their skin color and nothing else. The anti-racists sure sound very racist based on the physical definition of racism, right? But you have to dig deeper. These words, and this is how I know that there is a centralized movement around it. And this might sound like a conspiracy theory to you, but think about it this way. These words are not chosen by accident. They didn't call themselves anti-fascists by accident. That's probably one of the greatest bits of marketing of the 21st century, is labeling themselves anti-fascist. Because what happens immediately if you disagree with them? Salem, how are you doing? You see, the issue is, the second you disagree with the anti-fascist, you're a fascist. Because we're against fascism, but you're against us. That must mean you're a fascist. So we're against you. The same with anti-racist. If you're against us and we're against racism, then that must mean that you're a racist, and we would be against you then. Now you go for words like diversity. It's not an accident. The word diversity isn't chosen for lols. It's chosen on purpose. See, because on the face of it, diversity isn't bad. Diversity is super good. Diversity in almost every aspect of life is super good. Diversity in genes, very good. That's why we don't marry our sisters. Because that wouldn't be good for your children. Unless, of course, you want retarded kids, in which case, you know, I wish you and your sister luck. But if you want normal kids, maybe you don't do that, right? Diversity in almost every sense of the word, really good. So when we choose that word to represent what we're pushing for, if you are against what we're pushing for, that must mean that you're a racist, because we're for diversity. If you're not for us, then you're not for diversity. That makes you a racist. But if you look at how their diversity is applied, their diversity is anti-racist, to use their colloquial term. It's not about the diversity that matters. It's about the diversity that doesn't matter. But the word was not chosen by accident. They didn't accidentally choose that word. They knew what they were choosing from the very beginning. And they chose it for that reason. So that if you disagree, that must automatically mean that you're an evil person. You must be evil. Because how dare you disagree? Who do you think is the modern architect? $1 million question. Shashi, how you doing? Nuka-Cola, how you doing, bro? The music in the background is WoW music. And the only reason I'm playing it is I still have it. And it's some of there's not much music that isn't copyrighted. This happens to be one of them. Otherwise, you have to go for silly sounding music, and I hate that. So, just WoW. I'll download more copyright free music from games and stuff. Instead of black, yes. No, I mean, there are a few tribes that would qualify as black, but most are brown. Tatiana, how do you mean? So, okay, modern day...
anything for money.
Oh, shit. Maddie with the $5.
The most stupid thing about these people, they are target gamers of all people, gamers who basic stubborn, solitary and loyal to their hobby. They lost.
Maddie, thanks for the $5, man. Really appreciate you. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong, sir. They did choose the wrong people to target. Because gamers happen to be the one group that genuinely don't care about any of this stuff. In gaming, you don't... I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but I've never asked anyone that I've played games with what color their skin was. Ever. That's just never come up. I don't know. Maybe I just don't talk about the same stuff, but when I'm playing games with a dude, I couldn't give two shits whether they're black, brown, purple, pink. Can you play the game or can you not play the game? Do you need help or do you not need help? That's pretty much all I need to know. What your race is, what your gender is, what you like to suck or not suck in the evenings is of literally zero concern to me. It's just whatever. I have, meaning their in-game character, though. Yeah, but if you're asking in-game character, that's a different question, right? How big it is? I mean, what? Well, so you ask how big it is. Well, some people make small talk in different ways. I can ask about cultural things. If I find out someone is from like an interesting country, I'll have questions about that country. But it's usually, again, not really about their race. Like, I couldn't give two shits about the race. But if we suck, I just don't want to see anyone suck or not in a game. Ideological, I don't disagree. I couldn't care less. My stance on this is pretty much the same as it's ever been. Do what you need to do, as long as you don't do it on my bed. I don't care what anyone does as long as they don't do it on my bed. And I would count in my video games as the same thing. Unless it serves the story, it shouldn't be there. I actually, and this is going to be super unpopular, and a lot of you are probably going to hate me for this. I don't think games should have sex in it. I don't think games should have sex in it unless it makes sense to be there. I'm not one of those anti-gooner guys that says no sex in games ever. It's more just a case of unless it actually adds to the game, I don't see why it should be there in the first place. Unless you can make a compelling story out of it. Unless it adds to the story. So I'll use a great example here. In Mass Effect, the romance in Mass Effect actually does add quite a bit to the story because it impacts, at least in 2 cases, it very much impacts your decisions. There's going to be people that you're going to have to choose, and it's going to make things hard, right? So the romance there makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot of games out there where the romance option genuinely doesn't make sense. It's like, what? How does this add to the game in any way, shape, or form? You know, like, I don't see how this makes the game better in any way, shape, or form. Everyone is a racist. We on the Balkans are racist to each other's neighbors, but we laugh it off. I don't know. I think most people choose their own, except of course if you're on the left, in which case you don't choose your own. And I want the women in games to be hot, burn me. That's fine. So I'm non-binary. Loads of media. I don't know what that is. I don't, like, genuinely, I don't think that exists. Same with Witcher. His relation with either Triss or Yennefer defines who Geralt is. Growlin Witcher is another great example of that, where it absolutely impacts the story. And it absolutely impacts the story. But I think the same thing for movies. I think there are far too many movies out there that literally throws sex around purely as a marketing tool, where the sex doesn't seem like it adds anything to the movie outside of the fact that they can put it on the poster, or they can, you know, get people interested in the movie. Take Racklon, I haven't been in your streams for a long time, since WoW Shadowlands. I appreciate you speaking your mind. You're completely right. Sam Lowell, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Talking about stereotypes isn't racism. Rob, no, I also think that there's a lot of I think that there's a lot of weird stuff going on with calling things racist. You know, like the whole, if you have dreadlocks as a white dude, you're racist because apparently you're taking someone else's culture. I don't see that as racism. I don't know, call me crazy, but I think if you think that shit is racist, what, should I now be angry if black women have blonde hair? Like, if a black woman decides to dye her hair blonde, should I feel outraged by that? Or, like, you get Asian girls that make their hair blonde. Is that supposed to... Should I go, no, that's very racist of you, how dare you? I couldn't give 2 shits. It's like, okay, cool, you know, whatever. It is what it is. For racism anymore, as long as it doesn't result in violence. Lots of media. So the reason I don't believe that non-binary is an actual thing is you may not feel like it, but you are, right? You're either male or you are female. What you feel like is irrelevant here. It's what you are. You're male or female. Now, if you genuinely don't feel like either, you might need some help. That might be a good idea. Go see a psychiatrist and figure that shit out. Because you're not supposed to be that way. Gender and sex is determined by the procreation methods of the species. Since the human species procreates by male and female getting together and doing things, you know, behind closed doors, hopefully, there are those two. And you need to choose one. Preferably the one that you're given at birth, because that's the one that you are. The other one is just going to be nuts. I have to be honest with you guys. I don't feel like a man. I just feel like Stefan. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not that in touch with my feelings. Always drank the Kool-Aid. Yeah, Tyson is an idiot. But remember why he's doing that. His entire livelihood rides on it. You'll be surprised how much you can... So, a good example of how you can convince yourself of things. Apocalypse, how you doing, bro? Now that I'm free from WoW, I've been thinking back on when's the last time I've actually had fun in WoW. And it's genuinely 3 weeks after the launch of The War Within. My fun genuinely died about 3 weeks into the launch of The War Within. Because everything was new and it was sort of cool and it was like, oh, this is sort of fun. And then the fun left. But because it was my job, because I was covering WoW, I convinced myself this must be fun, right? I must be having fun, playing this game. Now think about someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson. His entire livelihood depends on media presentations. He gets paid by people to go talk on the television. If Neil deGrasse Tyson were to suddenly come out and say there are only two genders, can you imagine how he will not be on CNN, how he will not be invited to MSNBC? His career will be over. Right? Because Neil deGrasse Tyson's biggest contribution to the world was some planet that no one even gave a shit about, saying it's not a planet. All right, thanks, bro. Like, literally changed nothing. No one cared about Pluto beforehand. No one gives a shit about it afterwards. Your contribution to humanity will be noted in the annals of history. So basically, he's been going around pretending to be an expert because that's what he's paid to do. And the man knows it. I guarantee you the self-deception in that one runs deep. Very deep. Rob, you're not wrong. Fun and WoW was classic Nax with my guild, and my raid leader was telling me off for scaring off the new healer with my drunken rants in the housing industry in Australia. Joko, alright, that's one way to do it. I have fun not doing the content ASAP and just kind of doing my own thing. I think the fun has come out of WoW as they set it up to be able to play all content without having to be in a guild. So it's like joining random game lobbies. Yeah, I think the fun of WoW disappeared because of formulas. World of Warcraft has become formulaic. The entire game is just one big formula, and they just keep repeating the same formula. They never deviate, they never change. They make the game the same every single time. If you have played one zone in World of Warcraft, you've played all of them. They all play exactly the same. There's no difference. Ideological, that's perfectly fine, right? If people still enjoy WoW, they should play it. I just no longer do. I'll be honest with you, I'm having so much fun finally being able to play a lot of my backlog games and being able to focus on video games and politics and video games. It's the stuff that I love. I wake up every single day and I research all different kinds of topics. I look at the news and I enjoy what I do now because it's a lot more open than what I've been able to do with WoW. What is Demon Slayer? What about you, Echo? I like your views. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm into PS2 modded. I don't do that. Orcus Paladin is off. I think social media platforms have a lot to blame as well. A lot of the social aspects of the game have turned over to Discord servers, and there's so little interaction. Actually, Mardant, you're not wrong. I think a lot of games have suffered as a result of Discord specifically. I think there's a ton of games now that is made with socializing in mind that doesn't need to be social. I don't need to be social in this game. It could just be a single player game here. And then I do think that a lot of multiplayer games lack the depth of what a multiplayer game used to be. If you go back and you think about some of the earliest multiplayer games, these were games that were designed to be super fun single player. And they were so fun single player that you loved playing them with your friends. Whereas nowadays, almost every multiplayer game is made specifically to be a multiplayer game. And you get so many games now that if you play it solo, it's almost not fun. It's like, unless you're playing with friends, this game isn't going to be anywhere near as fun. And I just usually... I hate that. I miss the single player era of gaming. CCS, how are you doing, sir? Lodi, thank you very much, dude. I really appreciate it. David, how are you doing, sir? I appreciate that. I mean, the channel is still growing, right? The Akalon TV. It's still growing, but it is... I'm surprised at how fast it's growing. You know, we've been averaging over 1,000 subscribers per month for like the last 3 months. January, we had almost 1,800 subs for the whole month. It's been nuts. The support that you guys have been giving to this channel has absolutely been crazy. It's been super cool. That's because I don't have friends. It means I want to go full autist mode on a single player, then show my buds, not wait for all my buds to be available so we can autist mode together. Apocalypse, I definitely... Yeah, I mean, I think you and I have spoken about this before. Peter, I appreciate that. I think we've spoken about this exact topic before. Sometimes you just want to play alone, you know? Sometimes you just want to play alone. Like, sometimes I don't want to play with other people. Like, I don't care. I don't want to be in a lobby. I just want to play my own game. Leave me alone. You know? And super sad MMO or dumb who would want to play with other people. Such a pain. I will say, there are MMOs that I'm looking forward to. Maddie, thanks for the 5, man.
For money.
Just finished Metaphor, Refantatio last night. Blow my mind how some devs can write the most great political badass story. Western devs must learn from.
I've heard some good things about Metaphor Refantasio. I've heard some really good things. Peter, well, you're allowed to play with yourself, but maybe don't tell it to everyone, you know? Like, these are the things we use our inside voices for those things. Vladline, thank you very much for hanging out, man. Really appreciate you. Take care of yourself, sir. Immersion Man, I need it. Single player, me too. I want games where I can just lose myself. Although, I currently have a game that I'm just losing myself in the whole time. But I don't think it's for everyone. The game's called Foundation. Oh, man. I love that game so much. I love that game so much. I am genuinely like a medieval lord, just building this city for my peasants, and I'm loving it. Fun with friends, but aids with randoms, so I hate that I can't play alone. Grimnar, it's kind of like League of Legends. Super fun if you have like a buddy that you're duo queuing with. Mega aids if you're queuing alone. What was I gonna say? So, Maddie, what I wanted to respond with was there are some developers out there that can do amazing political stories. Like, for example, the guys from Metaphor Refantasio. But I would also say someone like Hideo Kojima. We've spoken about him before. That dude is a genius when it comes to political stories. But there's a difference, right? If you want to do political stories, the politics needs to be very well explained within your world, right? They have to make sense in your world. One of the stupidest things to this day, you want to know what proper political bullshit looks like. So when someone asks you, what even is woke? You can legitimately just show them this picture. You want to know what woke is? This is the definition of woke. This is a game where you can raise people from the dead. Dead. Talking guys' heads been chopped off. And you can raise them from the dead as if nothing had ever happened. They'll walk away from it, no problems. This is a game where the dead literally run around and is their own race. It's a game with magic and old gods and all the rest of it. And here you have one of the strongest mages in the universe, Archmage Khadgar, in a purple magical wheelchair. This is woke. This is what woke means. It's the insertion of politics into a game, whether it makes sense or not. Because in any other game, maybe you could swing it. In WoW, this is literally just to be inclusive. You want people in wheelchairs to feel like they're represented. Because obviously, what kind of guy that spends their entire life in a wheelchair doesn't want to see a bloody invalid in their video game? It's not as if they're playing video games so that they don't have to be restricted by their wheelchair. No. What they really need is the constant reminder of their wheelchair in the game. Why not? This is so, like, the fact that the person that came up with this idea should be shot. Combat wheelchairs are dumb. There are too many wokies at Blizzard, sadly, but maybe Chris Mason can turn things around. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. What's this then?
Let's see here. What the f***? What's this? They stood out.
This is old though. This is Blizzard. This was during the height of the Blizzard stuff. When the I remember covering this. This was when all of that sort of the lawsuits and stuff was happening. The devs were standing out there screaming because they were frustrated and they needed an outlet. And all this is, by the way, all this is performative. Not a single one of those developers actually want to be there screaming because they're frustrated. They're there so that other people can see that they're there. It's all performative bullshit.
And screamed in unison to complain about the state of the gaming industry. Watch a bunch of game developers screaming in a public park to protest the state of the industry. Wait, so this is real? No way, right?
If it was me, and it's not me, but if it was me, I would fire all of them. This is sort of like, you know, the email that Musk sent out to all of the employees in the federal government saying that they have to report back. This would be my email. I would go through this video, and every single person I see would receive an email immediately going, get the hell out of here. You're no longer welcome at this studio because you're an idiot. I don't want idiots working. Also, if this is your hair, you're not working at my studio. This guy looks as if he has a dog's pouch on his, or those cones on his head. Like, what the hell is that?
We are in the midst of a tremendous mental health crisis. This is insane. Amidst the excitement of GDC, dozens of developers shared a moment of pure catharsis. Join us in a eclectic moment of catharsis, camaraderie, and caterwauling. Let's descend upon Yerba Bona, and when the clock strikes noon, have ourselves a nice big GD scream. This is just, guys.
This is sad. This is
I cannot even express what this is to me. There were at least 2K devs at GDC. Maybe out of 30 or 40 joined the stupidity, 3% is not bad. Oh, no, this is not all game developers, but it does make people see this and they think that game developers are mentally ill man children that are literally getting together to yell at like literally, man yells at clouds. Like that's where we're at. And this is supposed to be taken seriously. This is crazy.
Dude, I have a question. And this might sound weird, but ladies, if your boyfriend or your husband was on that grass screaming this way, how do you have respect for them following that? Because as a dude, I'm looking at the guys there, and all I see is pathetic. I genuinely can't help myself. I cannot respect the masculinity of a man that would do this. I cannot. It's impossible. When game devs is like calling the weird hipster in coffee box a writer. True. It's not bad to be a mentally ill man child. Look at how quickly Andy Bush rose through the ranks. The blue hairs are coming. Lady would be drier than the Kalahari Desert. True. Bro, their spouses are just as mentally ill as them. Don't think about it as a sane person. I'd kick him square in the nuts that he apparently doesn't have. Then quit that bitch. Weak. They need help. Simply white knights. Dude, I can't. I don't know. How do you have respect for this? I don't see it. I can't see it. And she will collapse soon. I think it must. Better off walking out of work if you don't like it. I mean, if everyone does it, then something might change. But be prepared to find a new job if the company says, oh, well. I really think that we need more companies in the gaming industry to say, oh, well. I have one final story for you guys. It's a bit of an insider story. It's just a bit of fun. So my contact, actually two of my contacts reached out to me. One with a little bit of news. So a specific studio, I won't say names because it will give away who I'm talking about, has been inundated with emails and requests from Ubisoft devs asking if they have open positions. Now, for those of you that don't remember, about a month and a half ago, I covered this story where Ubisoft is trying something new. Ubisoft's plan is they need to lay a bunch of people off, but they can't afford the bad press. So the new plan is to lay people off slowly from smaller studios. So all of their studios are getting people laid off, but they're doing it slowly. So let's say, for example, they have 50 studios, 10 of them will get like 3 people laid off. And every month they lay different people off from different studios. This way, it never rises to the level of news, because no one's really going to write an article of like 4 developers being laid off. And it's also so subtle that the developers don't know that many developers are being laid off. Because most of the developers from one studio won't know who the developers are from another studio. So what ends up happening is Ubisoft is laying off a bunch of developers every single month, but they don't know that so many people are being laid off. And the only reason I found out about this is because another studio received all of these emails from a lot of these developers going, hey, do you guys have jobs? So that's insider information number one. Clearly, Ubisoft's doing great. Then I just found out about this last night. This was given to me last night, and this is actually beautiful. Some of you are gonna like this. Actually, some of you might get a little bit upset or angry about it, but some of you are gonna find it super funny. So you guys know how Corinne Bush left Bioware to join Skeleton Key over at Wizards of the Coast. You guys remember that, right? Like after Corinne Bush burnt down Bioware, he left and he joined Skeleton Key. Do you guys remember us talking about this? Well, it's not a rumor, Rob. It's literally... So, Corinne Bush, shortly after the failure of Dragon Age the Veilguard, Corinne Bush leaves BioWare, announces it publicly, and then the announcement comes that Skeleton Key, the new game studio, well, not new, but newer game studio from Wizards of the Coast, picks up Corinne Bush. So apparently Wizards of the Coast was like, oh boy, you are such a good developer. We cannot wait for you to destroy our studio to come work for us. But here's the funniest shit ever. After Corinne Bush joins Skeleton Key, EA lays off the entire Dragon Age the Veilguard team. All of them is laid off. A lot of these developers reach out to their friend and former team lead, Corinne Bush, going, hey, do you maybe have a job for us? Corinne Bush doesn't even answer the phone. Doesn't reply to the emails. Nothing. Corinne Bush literally burnt down BioWare and is now ghosting all of the developers out on their asses. Just ghosting them. Just brick wall. None of the devs that have tried to get a job at Skeleton Key even get a reply from Corinne Bush. This was also told to me in confidence from a developer that's friends with one of the devs trying to get a job there. Was this specifically lost money and lost gear, according to the recent earnings? Oh yeah. Is Bush a he or a she? You keep saying he, and it's a he. It's a dude that became a woman for reasons. Don't know why, but it is a he. Bleeding Soul, how you doing, sir? Rob, it is cold, but that shows you all of these people, because Corinne Bush is one of those people that speaks of empathy and how we should have empathy with people. It just shows you the level of narcissism, right? that's the problem. The level of narcissism in the gaming industry is real. All of these people are narcissists. With Angry Bits intact. So, Johnny, I actually think what a lot of, especially in the gaming industry, so the thing is, there's too many game developers that are trans for it to be real. Like, actual gender dysphoria is super rare. Like, genuinely super rare. There's so many developers in the gaming industry that are either non-binary or trans or whatever. And I can't help but think it's for sympathy. If you're a shitty developer that don't know how to make video games, you just come out as trans or non-binary and bam, you can't get fired. Right? Because if then they fire you, it's a hate crime. Grumpy and Old, how you doing? Thanks for the follow. Really appreciate you. Welcome to the channel. Thank you. Those people would sell you into slavery if they could, or stab you in the back as soon as you're no longer useful to them. True. It's all performative BS. True. Literally 0.3% of the population. Yep. No one's even gay anymore. Yeah, that is funny. It's not limited to game development. Grimnar, no, but the gaming industry, it's sort of useful to look at the gaming industry in this regard because it is a closed environment. So you can sort of look at that and go, it's not possible that so many people are, so many people in such a small environment is trans or non-binary. It just doesn't make sense. But you guys know my thoughts on non-binary. As far as I'm concerned, non-binary is the easiest thing you can claim if you want to be special, but you're not willing to commit to sucking D. So that's all it is. If you want to be special, you're kind of, just straight and weird and like a white dude. But you need to be special, because otherwise you're going to be the only one that isn't special. So what do? Well, you just come out as non-binary and bam. There you have it. I did find one more article. So this is the last article for the day. But it's actually super cool. It's just a very quick thing that I'm going to share with you guys. So on Reddit, I found this. And originally I thought this is just another one of those woke things and it's going to be super cringe. But actually, turns out the queer majority, I kid you not, that's literally what this website is called. The queer majority has some issues. Just listen, all right? The Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game has been popular for decades, but the pandemic era took it to new heights. For those not in the know, the game involves one player, the Dungeon Master, leading other players who each create their own characters to run through a set of medieval and fantasy role-playing adventures. Players can develop characters who are wizards, knights, clerics, thieves, etc., and set about various adventures. Getting clear sales data on the revised game system known as 1D&D is difficult. The publisher of the games, Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, don't appear to release transparent sales numbers, but all indications are that the initial products have been popular sellers. At the same time, the new system has sparked controversy and polarized the role-playing community. Put bluntly, the concern is that the messaging and language around the revised system is too woke. Critics argue that the changes seem dedicated to a particular 2020 moment, one that treats young players as emotionally fragile and promotes bizarre stereotypes of LGBT folks, estranged, flouncy, and prone to mental illness and temper tantrums. Now listen to this. This gets cringe. The controversy has been significant enough to garner widespread coverage from across the media landscape, with the revision coming under pointed criticism from industry insiders, prominent game designers, and fans alike. No less than Elon Musk has weighed in, denouncing 1D&D and even appearing to threaten to buy its parent company, Hasbro. The company seems to be leaning into the controversy, with Jason Tondro, the D&D project lead, slamming the game's grognards, grumpy old school players. I consider those people not worth listening to. Of course, These debates tend to fall along broader anti-DI, pro-DI cultural lines where team politics takes over and the two camps talk at or past one another. Dude, I want D&D to fail when I hear people like Jason say, I consider those people not worth listening to. I genuinely want this game to fail. If this debate feels very 2020 retro, it's not you. It's an artifact of the slow publishing process of the historical unluckiness of designing one D&D during a period in which progressives were ascendant, only to finally realize it once release it once the vibes had shifted. Z Vengeance, thanks for the sub, man. Really appreciate you. Actually, Xiang with the gifted sub. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you, Xiang. How you doing, sir? Okay, so let's get back here. Okay, so he's now gonna explain what went wrong with 1D&D, and this is actually a super cool explanation. If this whole debate feels very 2020 retro, it's not you. It's an artifact of the slow publishing process and the historical unluckiness of designing 1D&D during a period in which progressives were ascendant, only to finally release it once the vibes had shifted. As data from The Economist shows, the prevalence of far-left cultural power rose sharply in the mid-2010s, peaked around 2020-2022, then declined sharply. But unlike other studio industries, such as movies or television, which can rapidly adjust with the times, see the about-face Disney is making, for instance, 1D&D will be stuck with its anachronistic language and stereotypes for another 10 years or so, given that the game is only updated roughly once a decade. So, very interesting thing here. This is not just for D&D. This is also for game development in general. Remember what I told you guys like last week? We're gonna see woke games for at least the next 2 to 3 years. Because the overwhelming majority of games that are currently in development were made during a time where game companies and studios thought everyone wanted woke. So some of the games can sort of kind of maybe shift away from it as much as possible, but a lot of the games are too far gone. Like, there's been way too much development already for them to actually change. So sadly, we're gonna go a while still for this. But just look at how interesting this chart is, by the way. This chart shows diversity, equity, and diminution. I don't know how to pronounce that word. So you see from 2000, right, you see almost no attempts to censor academics for their opinions. And then in 2020, it spikes up, but then falls super sharply again in 2023. DI mentions on earnings calls. You see the same thing. It's never mentioned. In 2020, it sort of starts, right? And then it spikes around 2020. And then look how quickly it starts to die off again in 2023. I'm pointing at my screen as if you guys can see what I'm pointing at. And then DI jobs at big companies, you can see, is also starting to turn around now, right? It's also starting to fall right after 2023. So, but what exactly are people objecting to in the revised 1D&D? The controversies over 1D&D's cultural style have come in waves. Some relate to race, others to gender, but there is a general sense that this recent iteration has tried much too hard to be woke. The most recent backlash emerged after the Dungeon Master's Guide was released in late 2024. This guide is more than a rulebook. It's a critical resource designed to help Dungeon Masters design adventures and manage the game. Now, guys, this is where it gets... Just listen to this. In the Limits in Play section of the revised DM's Guide, players are encouraged to both fill out a checklist of sensitive topics to avoid and to use cartoonishly exaggerated body signals to stop play whenever those subjects are broached. Players are urged to fill out an included form to report whatever might make them feel unsafe. Examples provided include romance, spiders, and mind control. Many D&D spells can charm others, as well as sharing dice at the gaming table. Should someone violate these norms by, say, mentioning spiders, Players are encouraged to indulge in a goofy visual display, such as so if I say something during our D&D session that you don't like, I can just and that stops it. That like immediate stop. No more. No more. That's how you stop that from happening. The DM's guide also uses language to imply that the triggered person can never be wrong. The signal shouldn't trigger a debate or discussion. Thank the player for being honest about their needs, set the scene right, and move on. This seems a bit close to the believe all victims narrative that emerged in 2010. Of course, there's nothing wrong with players having adult conversations, but the DM's guide takes the approach. So it just goes on. This is literally, by the way, the whole thing just keeps going on. This is in Queer Majority. The Queer Majority website is sick and tired of DEI in video games, by the way. Do you know how far you would have had to have gone for the gays and the queers to finally stand up and go, enough. We don't give a shit about this anymore. Get out of our games. Tim, so what's funny here and why this is actually so catastrophic, you can tell just by the fact that, you know, there's sort of rules and how you should treat people, the infantilization of it all. The fact that victims are treated like children, small little babies that have not grown up yet. And then you have to remember the people that are writing these guidebooks, to them, these are good ideas, which should tell us something about the mental age of the people we're dealing with. Most of the developers in the gaming industry probably share the same sort of mental age, the same sort of emotional maturity. Because this is the kind of stuff that you would expect maybe from like toddlers. You know, like, yeah, maybe toddlers would do something. Like, I would have expected this kind of shit from my pre-primary school days. Like, maybe my pre-primary school teacher would have said we should do stuff like this. She didn't. She just made us punch each other if we didn't like shit. You know, we just had to fight our own battles. But still, you know, this may have happened in kindergarten. Well, yeah, we call it pre-primary. You guys call it kindergarten. Generally kind people, but bad ideas. Timmy, it's not even kind people because it's meant, yes, to be sort of it's meant to signal or at least mimic empathy. But then breaking the rules, the empathy dries up quick. If you don't follow the rules, so it is a method of control. Basically all that is. It's a method of control. This is how they try to control you. This shit really is sad. It really is just beyond sad that this is the state of the gaming industry. If I play D&D the first time I get attacked, I'll do the sign to negate the attack because the offended one is never wrong. Dude, that's an easy way to win, actually. As soon as they hit you with an arrow, you just do the sign, and then suddenly the DM has to go, and they missed, actually. Congratulations. Because remember, you can't disagree with me. I'm always right. All right, boys. Is there anything we haven't discussed tonight that you guys wanted to discuss before I log off for the weekend? Is there anything else that we have to be talking about? I will obviously be back probably tomorrow with more videos. It all depends what happens in the gaming industry. If there are more things that happen in the gaming industry. Oh, wait. I have maybe a little bit more good news for you guys. Just a little bit. I thought I'd spoil you guys a little. Do you guys want to see what an actual successful game looks like? Like an actually successful game. So apparently, according to many people, this is a successful game, right? This is what a successful game actually looks like. But if this is successful, what's this? Yeah, it's this morning, by the way. This is its first day. If this is what success looks like, what the hell is this? Because remember, we were told, right, that at some point Avowed was even outselling Monster Hunter Wilds. Actually, that's a good idea. Hold up. Guys, I have to... I have to do something. I have to do something, boys. Oh, where do I... Is this the right one? Yeah, this is the right one. Why wouldn't I tweet it? I have to tweet it. Making fun of Avowed is sort of 50% of my Twitter content, bro. Wait, Xbox co-creator Seamus Blackley argues that VR still lacks a killer app to drive mainstream adoption. Screw VR. I don't like VR, man. Gotta get the woke molding. Yeah. I mean, dude, if it wasn't for Avowed, I wouldn't even have a Twitter. My Twitter wouldn't even exist without Avowed. At least of the 202 followers that I currently have on Twitter, I would probably not even have 100 without Avowed. Like that little baby pushed some numbers. That little bad boy pushed some numbers, I'll tell you. Condanculus, oh no, what happened, meme? Yeah. 203 now? Oh, Epicus, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, sir. Thanks for the follow. Yeah, if you want random musings, guys, you can follow me over on X. I don't post often because I only really post about stuff that I care about. You know, I don't try to farm news, but if it's like something funny like this, I find making fun of the Avowed people super funny. You know, gonna make so much journalists sad. Think of the children. I am thinking of the children. I sit here every stream. I get all the musings live. Yeah, well, you know, if you are here in stream, the musings will come the same way. But all right, so I already do. But talk, I know. I see you often in my mentions and my notifications, so I appreciate that. I should say, though, of all my followers, there's a couple that I don't think is real. Last night, I was followed by 5 people that, if I look at the actual, like, pictures, it's just porn stars. Man, the OnlyFans spam on this site is nuts. It is absolutely crazy how much OnlyFans bullshit is on this site. Shout out to Alpaca for the last day of Alpaca Appreciation Month. Well, I had the old account on Twitter, followed now. Blue Nile, I appreciate that. Yeah, the old account I closed down. So I canceled that one. I like the new one because the new one, I can do whatever the hell I want. I don't have to worry about the WoW Andes. Because there, too many people followed me there that no longer cared about the stuff that I care about. So whenever I tweeted about the stuff that I cared about, it would just sort of, people wouldn't care. So I was like, nah, I don't care about this account. I'm just going to start a new one. And I'm going to do the stuff that I care about on this one. DMB, take care of yourself. Thanks so much for hanging out. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I am going to leave you. Patrick, how you doing, bro? How different would things be if we didn't have so many successful Asian games that don't sell out? To use as examples, Patrick, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Imagine if the Asian companies didn't start making games. Then I would be comparing Avowed to Dragon Age the Veilguard. Holy shit. That's like shooting yourself in the dick to avoid your foot. There's no win there. So it is nice that we can at least point to some cool games and say, well, what happened here? But no, I genuinely appreciate all of you for coming out. I hope you enjoy the Gaming Grifter. It's every Friday, remember, so mark your calendars. I will be back next week, Friday. I'm also live pretty much throughout the week on Twitch and YouTube here. But there we generally just react to videos or play video games. So, Actually, I'm lying. When I'm live, we're basically doing the exact same thing we do now. So, if you want the Gaming Grifter literally every single day, just come to the live streams. It's the same thing. I only do this one later at night so that the American fans can also join in. Patrick, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to each and every one of you for hanging out with me, for spending time with me, and obviously for supporting. The fact that you guys subscribe and that you watch the videos and that you enjoy the content means the absolute world to me. It really does. I took a chance covering stuff that I care about. I didn't think it would work. I genuinely thought that I was just going to be screaming into the void, covering the stuff that I think is important. And so many of you have joined in and have made your voices heard and have become part of the conversation. I really appreciate you guys. Gregory, Barrels, how you guys doing? There won't be a Mythic Banter. Well, no, sorry. I'm confusing two questions here. Mythic Banter will be tomorrow, 6 o'clock. So I will be editing it tomorrow. It'll be live at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Barrels, I don't play WoW anymore. So there's no... I'll make a video about it tomorrow. Just sort of announcing it, telling everyone I'm gone. I'm not going to be doing WoW anymore. So yeah, that's not going to happen. Ludite, I thank you. I thank you for that. I don't know if I should be an inspiration. It's just, I care about this. I think this is important. I think the time for sticking your head in the sand and hoping that this stuff goes away is over. I think if you care about gaming and you're a content creator, you should talk about this. It is important. And I think I'm lucky insofar as I'm at a point now where the culture is definitely turning. And I think we're going to see a lot more people talk. a lot more people are going to start feeling, and that's really the hope, is that people start to see the change, and it gives maybe some of the developers inside the backbone to speak up. You know, just sort of when they stop feeling like they're alone, and they actually realize that, wait, I'm not alone. There's plenty of gamers that will have my back if I speak up. I think that's important. And if I can help guide developers towards that, or if I can at least just be a voice of reason within the industry. Because my other problem, of course, with this is there's a lot of people who genuinely just do it for the clicks, who genuinely seem to write this because it's the new thing. And I don't like that. I'm here because I want the victory, but I don't think the victory is in how many clicks you can get. The victory is in, can we save the gaming industry? And that's going to be my goal always, is try to be balanced, try to be honest, try to be as correct as is possible. So everything I say will always be the truth as I understand it. That's the best that I can do. I don't think people have changed. We just aren't being censored as much anymore, thanks to Elon. Grimnar, but that will help people change, right? Because remember, if you're a game developer and you're working in the middle of Los Angeles, and when Twitter was still censored, you would maybe not agree with the stuff that's happening in your studio, but you'd be scared as shit to speak up. Because how are you going to be, like, you don't want to be alone in this. You don't want to be the only one, right? But now that this censorship is removed, there's a lot of developers, I think, that will finally start to see, wait, I'm not alone. I can speak, right? And I'm not going to be left on my own here. Balanced and honest. Where's the views and clicks in that? Ruben, for me, I started my channel with one fundamental goal. I don't want to win the argument. I want to be right. And I believe that by being balanced and being honest is the best opportunity to bring those people who are open to debate and are open to reason over to the other side. I don't want to turn into a channel that's just preaching to the choir. I think there's plenty of channels out there already. Like, let's just own let's just own the leftists and leftist tiers and all the rest of it. But from my perspective, what does it help? Right? If I'm just drinking leftist tears and my audience is going, yeah, leftist tears, but I'm not actually changing minds. So people aren't watching and walking away from it thinking, wow, maybe he had a point. Did I do anything? Did I make a difference? And if I'm not making a difference, I don't want to do it. So that's sort of my approach to this. I'm open to debate, but I like winning a lot. Being right is a nobler goal than trying to score points and gotchas. Ruben, I agree with that 100%. Social isolation was the point. People are easier to manipulate when they think they're alone. True. Have fun, bro. It was nice to catch you live for a while. And also, Barrel Scrub, will you cover the Riot Games scandal? What scandal? Are you talking about the Hextech chess stuff? I haven't looked into any of the Riot stuff yet, but if it rises to the level of scandal, I will definitely check it out. And if there's a video to make there, I'll make it tomorrow. Barrel Scrub. I'll look into it. I'll definitely look into it. Yeah, that might be interesting. I'll check it out because Riot Games is one of my favorite game companies. Wait, I'm lying. League of Legends is one of my favorite games. I don't like Riot that much. Riot is a bit scumbag. But League of Legends I like. They're alright. Check Dante's channel for starter. I'll check it out. On a scandal, they backtracked hard, and now we get even more chests. So they saw, because I mean, the games went off a cliff. That shit was funny as hell. I don't know if you guys saw how many players Riot lost as a result of the Hextech chests. Like, they announced that they were removing Hextech chests, and player numbers just went. Oh, that's just funny as hell. They brought back Hextech because people actually stopped buying skins and some uninstalled. Get more chests, but you gotta play a shit ton too. I don't mind if you have to play a bunch, but it needs to be you need to be rewarded for that play. So I hats off to the Riot guys. Hats off to the League of Legends community taking that shit to the company and saying nope. You see the drama with the Epstein files? I've been sort of quietly following it. The last I heard was someone updating the world, saying that apparently what happened is the person that's supposed to leak the Epstein files, or that's supposed to share the Epstein files, noticed that there's something weird with the files. Like, the files doesn't contain anything. It's just a bunch of telephone numbers and random bits of information. And then apparently an insider came forth, a whistleblower, and said that the file that was handed over isn't the file. They removed all of the good bits from the Epstein file. So after they were ordered to hand over the full Epstein file, they decided to not hand over the full Epstein file. Gimme, how you doing? Noticed FBI New York field office withheld like 2,000 pages. That tells you they're hiding something big. But the FBI field office doesn't have the right to hide shit. The fact that they're hiding stuff tells you there are some bangers on that list. So the fact that the Attorney General, like, hats off to the Attorney General for actually noticing, hold up, this cannot be the list. Like, hats off to, is it a he or a she? I don't even know. But very well played. Hopefully we get that list, because I think, my dudes, my personal opinion, once that list is public, there can be no more hiding. Think about this. Government and government officials can protect against allegations. They cannot protect against confirmation. Once the Epstein files go public, that's it. There are so many billionaires in this world that is going down as a result of that list. Because people will be up in arms. Now, of course, I think the left will pretend like nothing has happened, because right now the people on the left, anything that comes out of Trump's White House is just evil and bad. But the right will be up in arms. I think people all over the world will be up in arms at the evil. My question is, my question would be, who do you think is on that list? Like, who do you think, whose name is the biggest bombshell on that list? Because the field office is definitely not protecting all of the names. The fact that they withheld those pages tells you there's like a couple of people that's being protected on that list. Dip Dinger, how you doing, bro? Kanye. I mean, he's crazy enough that maybe. I would not be surprised if there's a lot of presidents on that list. The hard thing is going to be revealing, because I think there's a lot of people on that list that didn't necessarily. So I know, for example, of Brett Weinstein. Brett Weinstein has been on his plane before. So Brett Weinstein was talking at he told the story years ago. He was talking at a conference in LA, and then the next day he had a conference in New York. Not the next day, that same day. So the morning he's talking in LA, and then that evening he's talking in New York. And after he gave his talk, Epstein introduced himself and started talking to him. And he then mentioned he has to go because he has to rush to New York because he has a talk there. And Epstein was like, well, I'm going to that talk as well. You can just join me on my plane. That way you don't have to wait in the queue and all that shit. And so he got on the plane and he flew there. So I wonder how many names are on that list of people who just happened to fly on his plane, people who just happened to, because the dude was involved or connected to a shit ton of people. So it's going to be super interesting to see when that list comes out, who is actually guilty of crimes and who just happened to know him. Beyond both that and the dirty list. Ooh, yes. Around that GOP account made Trump look bad. What if it was on purpose? Thundercool. Because you guys have to remember, Trump is loved by the people, but he is hated by the government. I guarantee you the people in the GOP and the people and the Dems hate Trump. I would not be surprised if that was 100% on purpose. It's gonna be biblical. I'm looking forward to it. But anyways, guys, let me go. I need to go make some food. And then I need to go to bed. I will see you guys tomorrow, most likely with more videos and more news, depending on what happens. And yeah, we'll see what happens with the Epstein files. I'm cautiously optimistic that that's going to be some juicy drama that we might sink our teeth into with one of the live streams. Hopefully that shit gets released soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, for spending your time with me. I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun entertaining you. As always, have a wonderful weekend. Be good to each other. Be kind to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.